Now that we are live, thank you so much everyone for joining. It's a great pleasure for me to organize this show for everyone, particularly in India, all the Indian startups over here. Thank you so much for taking your time out for this show today, and I'm sure that this is going to be a great opportunity for you guys to kind of learn about what GST Venture Studio is and how you can truly expand yourself globally and take yourself, to the next step, right? So essentially, the concept for the program, Gateway to Silicon Valley, the idea was how Indian startups can truly think of themselves as global startups, right? A lot of the times we tend to have a very local focus, a very Indian focus to the companies that we are building, right? But we need to ensure that we are not just thinking Indian, we are also thinking global. In today's day and age, when we have Gary and Derek all the way from US and Russia, who can simply connect on an internet connection today, imagine the kind of opportunity which that provides. And that is what I'm hoping a lot of Indian startups think big and truly think global, how they can expand to the Silicon Valley and rest of the world. And that is exactly why we've organized this program for everyone over here. So let's start the introductions for this show with Gary. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce Gary Fowler. He's a very good friend of mine. We've been working together in the past few months, and it's an amazing opportunity for me to introduce Gary, just especially after I was in his show 2 days back. So Gary, over to you.
Yeah. So it's great to see everybody here. My name's Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies, been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with David Yang, a Russian, Chinese, Armenian, Russian. We brought it to Silicon Valley. The company's a unicorn today. I'm the CEO, president, and co-founder of GST Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a quantum and AI venture studios located in Santa Clara, California. And I'd like to welcome each and every one of you here today. It's exciting times. This is a great time for companies from Bangalore, Mumbai, all over India to be able to go global. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thanks for the introduction. Just for a lot of the audience who probably still may not be familiar with GSD Venture Studios and the motto behind that, right? Could you share some light on GSDVS? How did you actually start it out, and a brief about how you can help a lot of startups take their business global?
Yeah, sure. So we co-founded the company a couple of years ago, and was based on the idea that, as Derek says, that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. And based on my experience of bringing companies from the UK, from Russia, from all over the world, Israel, Click Software was an Israeli company, to Silicon Valley, we understood that there's some important parts to going global. One is you need decentralized teams. Two is you need cultural diversity. And three, you need intergenerational teams. And contacts in the Valley, especially during this time of the pandemic, are critically important for us. Having somebody on the ground integrated as part of the team that can really has credibility in the Valley, has raised money, has done sales, marketing, operations, and really has a global viewpoint. We view Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world. It doesn't matter where you're from, whether you're from India, whether you're from Russia, whether you're from Latin America, whether you're from New York City. Silicon Valley just happens to be a port. Why? Because the valuations tend to be higher. There's a greater opportunity for connections, partnerships, and if you want to to be acquired or merged with another company, it's just really the jewel and opportunity for it there. They just happen to be together. And so what we said is that if we use the experience that we have, Click Software was an Israeli company we brought from Haifa over to Campbell, California. We did an IPO on NASDAQ 28 months ago, sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion. And it was a little tiny company, a 9-person company from Israel. That means that each and every one of you here in India, think about it. The world is your pearl. The world is your opportunity, but you got to get the messaging out. The other thing is our background, our operations, business development, sales, marketing. We really complement the technical expertise that many people have. So whether it's AI and ML, whether it's some type of programming, whatever it is, whether it's across multiple vertical markets, you need to have that slant, that 360-degree view and experience. And that's where we come in.
Awesome. That's a great introduction, Gary. And you made some really interesting points, right? Click Software starting in Israel, a small team. They probably would never have imagined in their wildest dreams, the opportunity that they would have if they would actually, after coming to Silicon Valley, they would have never thought of that, right?
Yeah,
With the
well,
potential
Harsh,
that it
the
lies.
name of the company was called IET. I named it Click Software. And so I said, Click Software. And it was called Intelligent Electronics. Now, that is for a SaaS slash software company. And so what happened is people said, well, geez, I've heard of Click Software before. They never heard of it. They couldn't. It's impossible. It came out of the Israeli Air Force. So here we are. And the situation is, you've got to sex it up. You got to make it interesting for people. You got to make it catch their attention. You got to make it, as my friend Guy Kawasaki says, enchant them. And that's part of this. The other thing is credibility. Being in the Valley over 30 years myself, Derek also has extensive experience with 7 companies. Having those kind of contacts, having those friendships, and more importantly, having made people a lot of money really helps. All those things need to be together. Why? Because you can move really fast, you can move efficiently, and you can move effectively.
Bang on, right? So just yesterday, about 2 days back, there was this Israeli startup who reached out to me, and they were into this hardware technology, really kick-ass hardware technology, to kind of take kind of boost people's lives by using AI to kind of
Yeah, I think Harsh is frozen. So it's understood. I mean, there are companies from all over the world. I mean, from India, from Africa, from Latin America, reaching out because again, intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, and the opportunities aren't. What we do is really highlight those, showcase them. We say sometimes it's like having a Ferrari in a garage. In a situation with a Ferrari in the garage, it's great to have, but if nobody knows that you have that Ferrari, then how can you really put it on the track and race it? The key is pull it out of the garage, get it on the track, show people what you have, and make sure that you got it out there for people to appreciate and see. The other thing is your valuations, the valuations of your company. If you do it on a regional basis, they're many times much less than you would get in a place like Silicon Valley. And of course, there are a lot of Indian entrepreneurs in the Valley that have been extremely successful, like Vinod Khosla from Sun Microsystems, Khosla Ventures. So it's a great opportunity for each and every one of you. Harsh is
Maybe
off right.
we should let Tushar
Yeah, I
introduce
was gonna do that. Tushar.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Derek, for having me on this platform today. I know Gary, Derek, since I think it's almost a little bit less than a year now, and we have obviously worked with a number of projects, and it's very exciting to work with you guys because of the tremendous capacities which you bring on the table, both in terms of internationalizing companies coming out of places like India, as also getting the best practices going with these companies, getting them access to capital, and getting them access to some of the brightest minds out there in Silicon Valley. So myself, Tushar Kansal from Consultancy Ventures. In my previous life, I was in the private equity practice at Deloitte and Touche. I was also part of the team at Brand Capital, which is India's largest venture capital fund, owned by the Times of India Group. And I was heading treasury at MTS India, the Russian telecom company, where I was instrumental in raising almost $2.5 billion for the company. And I was also CFO with Distribution Logistics. That's a company owned by Guggenheim Partners, the American PE fund. in my current company, Consultancy Ventures, I've met with more than 2,500 startups and closely networked with more than 350 global investors, and have partnerships with extremely amazing companies like uh, GSD Venture Studios. And it's my pleasure to be on the panel today and be assisting in selecting startups for the international cohort. So thank you so much, Gary, and thank you so much, Derek and Marina. And it's fun to be here today.
All right. Thank you very much, Tushar. Vandana, great to have you on the show. Vandana and I have known each other for some time also. Great to have you here today on the competition. Vandana, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to thank the audience who has taken out their precious time to be here on the competition. And thank you to GST Ventures, Derek, who's been really working hard for this event, Gary, Harsh, and we are like a GST family here. There we meet like a Latukan family. Here we are meeting as a GST family. So it's a happy family time. I really enjoy myself when I'm on these events. I was in Singapore and Jakarta for 15 years in investment banking. I had my own family office fund there. This is my 7th year back in India. I did some investments and then I went back to advisory. So currently I'm connected with 300 investors globally, and I pick up global deals, and I'm working with Gary on several global projects. Not only this, we are sector agnostic. We do typically $1 million to $25 million. Apart from this, I've given almost 120 talk shows over Latukan TV, over several other panels, and very honored to be on Gary's panel once again.
Harsh, are you back?
Hey Gary, I'm back. Had some
Okay, do you want to
connectivity.
take over?
Sure, absolutely. So next, I have great pleasure introducing Derek as well. Derek is Gary's partner and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, and he's the operational mastermind behind not just GSD, but also this event as well, right? So Derek,
Yeah.
over to you.
Well, I don't know about the word mastermind. That's a lot of pressure, Harsh. But everyone, the first thing I like to say is that I'm the co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, but I've been an entrepreneur since I was 7 years old. I was selling baseball cards on the side of the road. And so that is in my DNA. And what that means is when I was 7 years old, I was successful because I found a 12-year-old to help me understand that if you bought baseball cards in bulk, you could sell them individually for cheaper. And ever since then, I've been helped by others, and that's how I've been successful. So I will always help an entrepreneur any way I can, help a company any way I can. And if I don't know how to help you, I will find the right person to do so. Certainly in terms of what I've done, I've worked in both B2B and B2C software companies, from legal tech to lending to cybersecurity to both hardware and software energy projects. I've always explained to people that I like projects with a lot of intellectual rigor. I really enjoy the process of simplifying the experience for users and also simplifying the messaging, as Gary was alluding to, which is so paramount, especially in the US market. And I've done that in $0 failures and $2 billion exits and pretty much everything in between. I also started, built, and sold a storytelling marketing firm called Cult Following, where we built online and offline ecosystems for brands. And then I also helped start an accelerator in the US called Bunker Labs. And GSD is really the culmination of all of that, with the belief that if you can pop the Silicon Valley bubble, as Gary said, it's not about America, but it's about having access to capital so you can define, dominate, and monopolize the category that you're in. And that's how you build a company that your great great grandchildren will see, that I refer to as a legacy company that will be around for years to come. And that's what excites me. And I've actually meditated on this. And yes, I do want my companies on my gravestone. That is what fires me up and how I want to be remembered. So thanks for being here today. And I'm excited to learn as much as we possibly can.
Hey Derek, that's awesome. Glad to have you here. And the kind of focus which you mentioned, right? That we need to be truly working hands-on with the founders. It's not just about raising funds. It's not just about getting them investor money. It's about how we work with them. Hands-on is it's what is required to build a startup, right? And that is what I always kind of believe. It takes a village to build a unicorn. No unicorn is built by itself, right? It requires partners. It requires customers. It requires an entire ecosystem. It requires a proper thorough ecosystem, kind of what Silicon Valley does to kind of create that kind of an ecosystem of a familiar entity, which kind of helps in taking to the next level, right? So last but not least, I would like to introduce myself. Hello everyone, my name is Harsh Shetia. I'm a venture partner with our ventures. I'm also the founder of Startup Hackers. Essentially, the focus of Startup Hackers is just as Derek pointed out, right? We wish to work hands-on with the startups to kind of take them to the next level, right? Essentially, what generally tends to happen is a lot of startups, they tend to miss those nitty-gritties which are required to kind of take them to the next level, kind of help them with the right connections, right? And people like me, people like Derek and Gary, etc., and Manna and Tushar, we have those kind of connections. So that is essentially what we do. We find out the right people who can help them with the right connections, with the right introductions. Not just that, even refining the business model, refining the offer to kind of make it so suitable and so attractive that anytime you pitch it to someone, the customer goes, wow, that's something I've never heard of. That is something completely amazing. And that is something which I like to focus on in trying to build the startup ground up. And that is what I truly gel in and thrive in. And essentially, I also help startups fundraise all the way up to $5 million, all the way up to Series A. And I have a collection of investors based out of Singapore, Middle East, and Europe as well, and helping startups fundraise, right? So that's a small bio about me. And let's start with the first discussion, right? So I would like to start out with Gary first, and I would like to, kind of want Gary to tell us a little about, what are some of the major growth hacks? You worked in 14, 15 companies till date. What are the major growth hacks from Silicon Valley which you can kind of share with the audience so that they can kind of, try and imbibe some of that within their own companies?
Yeah, so now 17 companies are, so I'm down the line. I'm like rings on a tree, But so some of the growth hacks, I mean, customer development is critically important. So being able to get out, go to your customer, go out and test your messaging. A lot of times companies from all over the world don't do that. Silicon Valley really offers a unique opportunity. I can tell you with Eva, I would walk down the street in University on University Drive, and I would meet with people in cafes. They happened to be vice presidents of companies like Apple, Palantir, and I would pitch them, and they were really open to the ideas. I remember with Eva, my billionaire partner David Yang and I each did it 50 times and gave us a whole lot of insight. That's door number one. Door number two is access to capital is critically important. So wherever you are, you need follow-up investment. It just so happens that about 50% of the VCs in the world have some offices located in Silicon Valley. So if I want to raise money from Docomo, the largest telecom company in Japan, I can find them in Palo Alto. If I want to raise money from uh, Germany, if I want to raise money from BMW, General Motors, Mahindra, I mean, in India, I can find the offices there, thousands of offices. And the key is that's really important. The other situation is the valuations, having the right kind of valuations, because sometimes what happens with startups all over the world, especially areas like artificial intelligence, they don't get the kind of valuations that you would find in a place like uh, Silicon Valley. So those are just some of the things. The other thing is having the passion, having the optimism, being able to visualize, stay positive. Sometimes around the world, I started the first accelerator in Russia, actually, and one of the largest private accelerators out of Russia. And one of the things I found is that, you've got to have a positive attitude. The glass is half full and not half empty, because investors don't want to hear, well, I think it might work. I'm going to try. They want to hear, listen, either you're going to do it or not. And the situation is, you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in your dreams, and you got to get it done. The other thing that's important is connections. Connections are critically important. Silicon Valley offers those connections to the globe. Now, again, we work all over the world, but having those connections, points of contact. For instance, on Saturday mornings, many times I'll go down to Starbucks at about 7 o'clock in the morning, a little after 7. Tim Cook's in there. I've sat down with Tim Cook, had a chance to sit with him for, 10 minutes, 15 minutes and talk, but talking to a guy like him and the kind of connections, Mark Benioff, just connections. Connections are really important, because that's really how the world turns. As we know, Harsh, we've developed a deep relationship, Vandana, Tushar, over the time. That's how we make the world a better place. It's about bringing people together that trust each other, that believe in the same ideals and dreams. And the other thing is, AI is the new electricity. So AI startups that are out there, this is like the beginning of the 20th century. Everything's going to change. Look at the amount of data that we have around us. 40 zettabytes of data. 40 zettabytes of data is enough to go back and forth to the moon 29 times. We're in a state of infobesity. So each one of you out there, think about it. We're in this state of infobesity. We need to make decisions based on the data, but more importantly, we need to use semi-supervised and unsupervised AI to be able to help us make our dreams come true.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thanks a lot for those points, and definitely the point about the connections and the network. It's absolutely imperative, and that is kind of what takes you to the next level, right? Because typically what happens is, especially AI projects, they tend to require a lot of money upfront, right? At least $2 million just to kind of get off the ground, and it's difficult to get that kind of money upfront. So it definitely makes a lot of sense. So Derek, over to you. What are your thoughts? And on major growth hacks, primarily from Silicon Valley.
I think that one of the first things, and when we talk about growth hacks, let's just level set on marketing, is I think there is this belief that if you can get your CAC costs in order, where if you can figure out how you can do enough Facebook or Google ads and you can keep your CAC costs low enough and you're growing, that is enough to be a company. And that gets written about so much in blogs. But what I would say is it's a lie. And it's a lie because nobody publishes what their growth hack was unless it's several years later, like Airbnb says, oh, we wrote this crazy algorithm where we used to place ads on Craigslist for free and we got people to join that way. And we know that 10 years later, but they weren't writing blogs about that, in 2010 or whatever. So I think that what you first need to think about is, what is the unique insight that you have and that you bring to the table? And how are you going to not just use that insight to build a phenomenal product, which is necessary, but you need to find that insight to also turn on your marketing engine. And we talk a lot about engineering your marketing channels because it requires that side of the brain. The creative part you either have or you don't, but I think everybody can act like marketing engineers and use data. To kind of use some examples, I had a storytelling marketing firm where we built communities. And one of the things that we did is we had an early client, which is an app, Shaper, which I'm assuming many of you guys know. It's an international app called Shaper. It's like Tinder for entrepreneurs. You see founders, you swipe right if you want to meet them, swipe left, etc. Well, Yeah, someone says I love Shaper. And you know what I did with Shaper with my marketing firm is I bought the premium subscription. It was $500. And I was able to test which cities would be most interested in learning about cult following. And we learned what those cities were. And then we started getting a lot of success from it. And what I did was is I hired 10 other people in Indonesia to swipe right in certain cities that we knew would be successful, that we would lead to customers. And of course, I didn't tell anyone about this when I had my marketing firm. But what it did was is it created a marketing and sales engine for my firm that made us buyable, which is not normal for a marketing firm. And so I think you have to find those unique opportunities. I'm a big believer in finding those unique communities. Shaper is, I think probably too late. I think, what could you do with some of these unique communities that are springing up, and attach onto them and then create sales channels, and don't tell your friends about it. Tell them you're using Facebook and Google, and keep that CAC cost incredibly low. The second thing that I want to just say very quickly, and Harsh, you can ask me questions later. I don't want to talk too much, but a lot of times boring old industries get forgotten about. And so I was chief operating officer at 360 Payments. No one's heard of 360 Payments because we're the most boring. It was the most boring company in the world. It provided payments in the United States, mostly for auto shops. And the reason is it was a card present technology that worked like Stripe. And the internet's taken over the world. It's eating us for lunch. What do you do if that's your technology? Well, you think about where are these industries that still need card present transactions? And certainly auto shops are that. And by niching out and focusing on an industry that everyone thought was boring, but making it cool and fun, and also a good product, allowed us to, really grow super fast. We added $50 million to the top line in 2018 just by focusing on auto shops and medical. And so, don't forget about boring, unsexy industries just because TechCrunch doesn't write about them. And don't forget that they could be your customers and they have communities as well. There's an auto show every year. Again, you guys have never heard about it, but it's called SEMA, and it is the biggest convention in the United States every year. You'd not believe how big this is. And again, doesn't get written about in TechCrunch or, isn't front page, but there is a massive community around the auto business in the United States that we were able to tap into because we weren't concerned about what was cool and hip. We were concerned about finding that unique insight and finding those customers.
Derek, those were some very incredible points you mentioned over there, right? So this kind of highlights the fact that all that glitters is not gold. A lot of the times we see a lot of glitter, a lot of glamour around these media publications like TechCrunch or Product Hunt, and people are trying to rush over there without realizing the kind of competitive element which is there. Facebook ads and Google ads in today's day and age, they have become far too expensive, and it doesn't make sense to advertise in these platforms at all. And yet people are running after that, trying to make sense out of that. And the only one who makes money out of that is the marketing agencies. Most startups end up losing money, the invest VCs end up losing money. It's the agencies which end up making a shitload of money. So it's extremely important to kind of create your own marketing strategy which is relevant to your own company and customize it to your own company, right? To kind of build on that Airbnb point. I'm not sure if many audiences are familiar. What Airbnb had essentially done was, there was this platform called Craigslist in the United States. It's essentially a directory of a lot of services out there. What they do is Airbnb had reverse engineered the code over there, and essentially people can simply, they had put their listings on Craigslist. So essentially what people could do is they would simply click that and redirect them to the Airbnb website. technically that was illegal and unethical what they did, but during those 6 to 9 months that was live, they made almost 100, I think it was over 100,000 bookings just to that hack which they had done. And that is really what put Airbnb on the map. So it is this kind of innovativeness, this kind of engineering is required to kind of truly go to the next level. So, definitely these interesting points are extremely helpful and kind of, gives us an overall structure. So next I would like to come to Vandana and kind of understand from her, what do you think are, some of the key factors which truly help in building a successful startup?
Okay, so thank you for the question, Har. So the thing is, the first and foremost thing which I tell all my startup is that it's very important to have a good pitch deck made by a professional. Many founders don't want to invest in a good professional pitch deck. I think it's very important to have your pitch deck in order, because investors don't spend more than 90 seconds on a deck. It is very important to have a video pitch deck as well. Not only this, it is very, very important to have a good team, a good marketing team, a good operations team, a good finance team, a team that complements each other. That works really well for all the startup. Many startups are apprehensive to have an CFO, have an advisor on board. I think these investments are really important for a startup to grow. Having a positive attitude and having the drive to take your startup to the next level is another important thing which helps a startup to grow. Not only this, that what is it that they are building? What is the kind of problem that it is solving? What is the kind of revenues that are coming in? What are they exactly moving towards? Are they looking to burn the investors' money, or they are looking to, make it double? So all these factors really help a startup to grow. And I would highly recommend all startups to have these basic things in order before reaching out to investors. Many startups reach out to random investors, which their thesis is not matching the startup. So if it's a technology startup, they have to definitely reach to an investor who's good, who's investing in technology, a deep tech, a fintech, or an agri-tech. If it's a food startup, they have to reach to a food investor. So they don't look up the website, they just do cold calling, which is also not appreciated. They are not reaching out to the right kind of people who have relationships with these investors. Investments do happen on relationship basis, over a breakfast meet, over a dinner meet. It only happens if you have a strong relationship with the investors. So I would highly recommend all startups to have these points definitely in order. And now it is the time to go fully digital, to use your LinkedIn well, to use your Facebook well, to use your WhatsApp story to promote your startup. It is important to also focus on bootstrapping rather than only focusing on getting investments all the time. That many startups fail to do as well. So I think these are some of the basics which one needs to take into consideration.
Thanks, Vanna, for those points. And definitely it makes a lot of sense. A lot of the startups are struggling with kind of building a right pitch deck, something which truly communicates with the audience, right? They end up, the pitch deck goes on for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, and doesn't make sense. The pitch deck ideally should not exceed 7 to 10 minutes at best. And they need to kind of, focus on the core elements of it, and they end up missing out on a lot of that. So definitely, thanks for those interesting points. I would like to add Tushar next. Is Tushar there? Tushar, are you there? I don't think Tushar is there at the moment. So there are some pointers which I would like to add to a lot of startup founders, is that you need to have a lot of complete clarity in exactly what you're doing, right? So just yesterday I had a discussion with a startup which I was was working for, and he had kind of outreach to me. typically tends to happen is if you're trying to diversify too much, and this is kind of alluding to Derek's point earlier, right? If you don't niche down and you're operating in too many sectors and you're making it extremely diverse, extremely vast, it becomes very difficult to communicate the value proposition of your business, right? So I, coming from a core marketing, that marketing background, a communication background, the most important thing is when you are completely diverse and you have multiple areas which you're working in, your communication can get completely diverse, it can get completely divided, and no one will exactly know what you're working on, what the core focus is. It's extremely important to have that core focus, that you want to focus laser pointed on that one industry at that one point of time, because that is how you truly get a lot of value out of that, right? And that is how you can kind of communicate that value to the end customers as well, because they can see that if the focus is on a singular industry. At the same time, another important thing which is also important, you need to focus on is you need to have a specific growth plan in mind, right? You cannot say today I'll do a little bit of Facebook ads, I'll do a little bit of Google ads, I'll try a bit of influencer marketing. You cannot dive your foot in a little bit of all of that. Try and identify one specific tactic which you want, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Google, or whether it be influencer, whatever that might be the case. Try and identify that one specific growth hack and double down on that as much as possible, and try and tweak and test it as much as you can on a weekly basis, right? Growth hacking, essentially it's a process of weekly trying out, weekly testing out, creating new experiments, seeing whether they are giving any outcomes or not, and kind of improving upon that. That is the essence of the growth hacking process, and you need to understand those details. And that's why if you spread out too thin, you won't really get too many results. Rather than that, if you can focus, so for example, if you want to invest say 1 lakh rupees, right? If you put that 1 lakh rupees, if you want to split it into all these sectors, you won't get any results out of any of them, because it's not enough if you put 10,000 rupees in Facebook or Google or YouTube or influencer. If you split that all out, you won't get any results. Rather, you put all of that money in just one sector. What that would do is it would communicate to the social media algorithms which kind of audience you want to attract towards your business. This will educate the social media algorithms and the customers that this is the channel where I can connect with them, this is the algorithm which is suitable for me, and these are the kind type of customers. So what will then happen is the social media algorithms will then throw your customers toward your business, because they want to drive engagement towards. The essential idea of the social media algorithm is to drive engagement for the customers, right? That's how you need to do. That's why you need to focus on specific channels instead of spreading out too thin. So these were just some of my pointers in kind of ensuring how you can truly grow your business. Now we have Tushar back. So Tushar, would you like to add some of your thoughts as well? Tushar, you're on mute.
Yeah, yeah, it was not allowing me to unmute myself. So that was very interesting, Harsh and Derek. And so my thoughts are basically, I've seen companies trying to reinvent the whole wheel. Companies who, get onto a learning curve, and then they realize that what they have been doing, a lot of other companies have already done. And that's where having quality connections, quality investors on board, quality partnerships on board helps, because you get access to best practices, and you also get access to you basically end up not wasting a lot of time and catching up on what the latest things are out there in terms of be it growth hack or anything like that. From my perspective, I always believe that it is very important to be very mindful of the people you want to have on your cap table. And people like uh, GSD Venture Studios, or those are the right type of people to have on your cap table. And it's not only about then access to financing, but it's also about product, it's also about marketing, it's about getting a good talent in, it's also about lowering your costs across functions. And from when I help out startups and growth stage companies, I always make it very sure to uh, to take them to the right people who are able to help those companies genuinely in the future, and not only just put in money, because anybody can put in money, but it's also about being partnering with the company over the short term and the medium term, and seeing it to success. So these are my views about this whole
Uh,
topic.
th- Thanks, Tushar. Thanks, Tushar, so much for those insights, and definitely makes a lot of sense as well, right? So I would like to speak to the audience now that if you have any questions regarding any how to grow your business, if you have any specific help which you're looking for, please share in the chat option. And if you want any clarification regarding GSD as well, how they are operating, if you have any doubts about that, feel free to share it in the chat, and we'll try to accommodate as many questions as we can so that this becomes a meaningful session for everyone, right? So coming to the next point, right? The product. So obviously the startup culture, the focus is a lot on the product, right? um, Airbnb was once in a lifetime kind of product. Same was true for Uber, same was true for Facebook. The Amazon was the prime example at a time when it used to take tons of servers to kind of just create a website. And from coming from that to today's day and age, where you have completely codeless kind of products, where you can simply add a few options that you want. You can build your website on WordPress absolutely easily, and there are other codeless options as well. So sharing more thoughts on the product, Derek, could you share some light on what kind of product strategies should startup founders look at, when they are looking to, uh, what kind of products, what mindset should they have in terms of, getting that stickiness to the product which is required?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions is sometimes startups and entrepreneurs believe that they're in the future business and that it's their job to see the future. In 10 years, virtual reality is going to change the world. And it's going to be like Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie that you may or may not have seen. But I think the hardest thing is if you're looking at a high growth business and you want to build something, you don't need to be a futurist. You need to be a presentist, meaning you need to build something that's needed now. And that's easy for me to say, and it's very, very hard to do. In practice, what that means is you're building something and for the world is today, and then something happens like, oh, a pandemic, and the world changes forever. And that's why as a startup, you have a huge advantage, because unlike a public company who has to operate slow and precise like a neurosurgeon, because they have so many stakeholders involved, you can act like a trauma surgeon or an emergency room doctor and operate with 60 to 70% of the information you have and make quick decisions. And so I think number one is pay attention to what the world is today. And so, what happened with the pandemic? All of a sudden, this digital cloud transformation that the futurists have been talking about for so long is now here. So that should strike some ideas, whether that be a new product or a pivot. Education has changed, medicine has changed, and all of those have not just second order effects, like it's too obvious to say like you should make a COVID vaccine or other things, but there's second and third order effects that have taken place because of all of this. And I think if you can find that unique insight, that's what's important, and to pay attention to that. So specifically, everybody in the Valley right now is looking at med tech and ed tech. But one of the things I think that's too easy and not relevant. But one of the things that I know that I feel, and I believe there's lots of data to back this up, is, and even in India, where you guys are in a much different situation in terms of the pandemic, everyone is chomping at the bit to travel. And I just do not believe that travel is dead forever. But I do think travel is going to be much, much different. And so what are those opportunities that exist? And I'm not just saying build another hotel or build a new airline or another travel website, but think about those second and third order effects, because now is the time to build, because I don't think it's years away from people getting that travel bug back. I think, there's different challenges in India right now. It's incredibly difficult, but I think, it's going to change, and people are still going to want to travel and still going to want to do things. But you also need to keep in mind that um, the reality. One quick thing just to lay that point. If I see a pitch deck and I don't see the word COVID in it, my assumption is you haven't updated your strategy since the pandemic, and that you built the pitch deck over a year ago by a designer and you haven't updated it, because COVID has impacted every business. And I'm sure there's some exceptions and I'll be proven wrong by that. But largely speaking, mentioning the world, both in terms of messaging to customers and investors and in building that into your product, is what you need.
Those are some really interesting thoughts, right? So a lot of the times what happens is, as you kindly mentioned, right, travel is kind of, people have completely ignored that as of right now. People are thinking travel startups probably might not be a good idea. But it's an interesting thought, right? Obviously, people are just chomping on the bit when they can get to travel more, and it could throw up some really interesting opportunities. We still don't know which direction that could be, but that is the surprise. That is the beauty of it, right? uh, there's going to be some way or another which way it's going to be which one is going to be successful, but definitely it's going to be really interesting to see which one really works out. uh, I would like to take, want to understand from Gary, what are your thoughts? What do you think? What kind of product strategies would you like to share with the audience right now?
I'm sorry, what was the question again, Harsh?
So essentially, what kind of product strategies do you think, something you've been practicing a lot in Silicon Valley as well, right? What kind of product strategy, what product thoughts should be taken into consideration when you are building your product to get the stickiness from the customers?
Yeah, I mean, the situation in terms of products. So a couple of things, and I'll take a little bit different shot at it. So each one of you out there, I mean, they talk about machine learning and deep learning as being part of the product set, and it gets a lot of attention from uh, investors. It gets a lot of attention from potential partners. It gets a lot of attention from customers. So whatever, if you've got algorithmic math, semi-supervised AI, you need to make sure that you highlight it. It's really important today. So from a product standpoint, the other thing is, what I did with Click Software is I came up with the name of the company, Click Software, and then we came up with a family of products. So I called it Click Fix, Click Plan. Make it easy for the customer to be able to remember what you have and who you are. Don't make it too complicated. And remember the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. If you use that principle, it works. So we you want to make sure that when people think about you, as Guy Kawasaki says, they're enchanted. They remember who you are, what you do, and what your product is. So that's really important in terms of building the strategy. Keep it simple and make sure that it, to go down through and do the customer development to test it. Customer development, as I said earlier, is critically important. Make sure that people are accepting, because sometimes what happens is you start to believe your own stuff and you don't really take the customer into consideration. Make sure, as Bob Dorff and Steve Blank say, and Eric Rees, that the customers are willing to grab it out of your hands. Then you know you got the product that's really interesting for them. Then you know that that product name, that product strategy is right. And don't go down through and over-engineer a product. Use your MVP to get it out. A lot of times, especially technical founders, will make it extremely complicated. Make sure it's an MVP so you can understand what the customer wants and what the customer needs. Let them dictate what the product strategies should be. There aren't a lot of people like Steve Jobs out there that define new categories like that. So, 99.9% of us need to go down through and listen to the customers.
Very interesting points, Gary. And this is a lot of times the startup struggle, right? They want to build the best product, the most amazing kick-ass product right from the get-go, And when they kind of take the product to the market doesn't want it. And that is actually one of the biggest reasons why startups fail, right? There's actually been a statistic on this. 40% products startups fail because the product was not required by the market at all. And that throws an interesting curveball around every one of us, right, who was kind of building the product. That's why it's extremely important to follow the lean methodology, try and keep it as lean as possible in the early days, try and get the product fit, try and get that that build that bit of community with the customers, get them to kind of adhere to the product as such in the longer run. And something which a lot of startups tend to forget is trying to build a community around the product, right? They simply focus on the tech side of it, but unless you have that kind of community where they are truly willing to vouch for your product and vouch for your company, that is how you truly build a solid community and a solid word around your product, right? So I believe that is something which a lot of startup founders should look at as well. So I would like to come to Vandana next, trying to get your thoughts and on what startups should look at when they're looking to fundraise, whether it be from India or from internationally investors, right? What do startups essentially should they look for when they are trying to start fundraising, and what kind of mindset should they have when they're raising their first round?
Firstly, a positive attitude takes us long way. So firstly, the startup needs to be very, very positive in the mind. That's why I suggest all my startups to read the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Secondly, it is very, very important to have a pitch deck in order. And if the pitch deck is not in order, then naturally there is a backfall there. Many founders, they don't want to invest in the right kind of pitch deck. They feel they are able to make the pitch deck, they'll be able to do the marketing, they'll be able to do the operations. Hence, because they don't have all these complementary things and they don't want to invest in the right kind of pitch deck, they don't want to have the right kind of marketing team, operations team, finance team, there is a chance of failure there. So firstly, the founder needs to have a good complementary team. The startup needs to invest in the right kind of pitch deck. Having a video pitch deck is very important when approaching the investors. Secondly, approaching the right kind of investors with a proper thesis, which matches the startup is very important. Not just approaching any kind of, approaching VCs without having any knowledge about their thesis is definitely going to give a backfall there. And when a startup starts looking for investments, investment bankers have the right kind of connection to the investors and the right kind of relationships with the investors. Hence, it is important to connect with them. They'll be able to guide you as to how to reach to the right kind of investors. Having an advisor on board, having a CFO on board is very, very important to be able to guide you as to how to run your show. Not only this, what are you building? What kind of technology? The startups that are getting investments nowadays are edutech, agri-tech, fintech, health tech, food tech, deep tech. So these are the sectors that are hot and getting investments. Whether you have the mindset to go global or no, and whether you are open to change and progressive and proactive in adapting and pivoting yourself. Let me give you an example. When demonetization happened in India, many startups, many people didn't know how to use Paytm. They were skeptical to use Paytm and the digital payment system. Only when they were forced to use Paytm, they realized that it is how handy it can be. And now many people are using digital payment systems. Similarly, when first Zoom came into practice with these kind of events, everybody was skeptical to use Zoom. Everybody said that, oh, we are not going to use Zoom, what it is all about, until they were forced to use Zoom during lockdown. Then came StreamYard, then came AirMeet and all these other platforms where we connected globally for events. So I think it is very, very important to be proactive, progressive, and have the will to go digital and learn new kind of technologies to be able to be up to the mark with what is happening in the trends. So I think that is really, really important. We are connecting globally right now with all parts of the world on this event. Now, it is so easy to do that, and it is so effective. We are connecting with people all over the world, taking startups globally, interacting with each other. So I would recommend everybody to come on platforms like these, attend webinars like these, go global, go fully digital, make the full use of the lockdown and be as much as positive as you can, and be able to pivot is also, one of the things a startup should have in mind, that if they are, if they are not ready to pivot, if they are not ready to change themselves, then definitely they are not having a positive attitude there itself. So these are my thoughts.
Thanks, Vanna. A lot of interesting thoughts are there. Obviously, it needs to be very specific, very presentable. Pitch deck needs to be very effective, and targeting the right investors. A lot of the times, the founders just randomly trying to reach out to the investors, family offices, VCs, without understanding whether the sector interest or not. Right? Just to kind
Yeah.
of give an example, Hero Motors and TVS Motors are their automotive sector companies, and if you reach out to them for health tech, doesn't make much sense, right? If they don't have that kind of sector focus. So you
And
need
I
to choose
forgot
the
to mention one more thing. Many founders box themselves up by giving a valuation way ahead before time, and giving some valuation which is not reasonable. So I think that needs to change also. Get your valuation done by a professional. Again, do some investments in that. Get your financial modeling done, by a professional, and don't box yourself in by giving a valuation way beforehand. So I think I forgot to mention that point. Sorry to cut you off there, Harsh.
Sure, no worries. And that's an interesting point which even I can kind of relate to, because a lot of times the startup founders tend to have a way too inflated valuations. They think that they want to restrain the equity, but they don't understand that in the longer run, the higher valuation could end up haunting them, because the higher valuation comes with its own terms and conditions. At the same time, the pressure to deliver becomes exceedingly high, which may not even be feasible at times. So that kind of consideration is extremely important as well. So thanks, Vanna, for those thoughts. And so coming
Hey,
now to Tushar.
Harsh, well,
Yeah,
somebody
Gary.
just asked a question in terms of building a team, and I just wanted to say that, what you want to do, just a couple seconds, what you want to do is look for people, especially co-founders, when you start, that complement your skill sets. So, it's about having that synchronicity, and to the point where that co-founder, those co-founders can really feel what the kind of things that you do, and you can fill in for each other and help. So having co-founders that have operational expertise, that have financial expertise, that are creative and visionary, and leadership capabilities are critically important. Many times when technical founders do companies, they forget about sales and marketing. So it's great to have a great product, but as I said, it's like having a Ferrari in the garage. You got to need to be able to get it out and let people see what it is. So building a team up, look for cultural diversity, look for intergenerational teams. You want some people that have the gray hairs to help, because they'll have the context to be able to give you the credibility that you're going to need. And also decentralized teams. There's incredible capabilities in India to be able to do technology, to be able to do software development, etc., AI. You want to use those teams, use the resources from wherever they are to be able to complement you, and stay positive and stay optimistic. You got to be able to lead the company. Don't come up with oh, I'm not sure if it's going to work. You got to stay positive, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe it'll come true, it does. It's called the Pygmalion effect.
Interesting thoughts, Gary, and a lot of important advice for everyone as well. Derek, would you like to chip in on that question?
Yeah, I mean, here's how I would build a team. Just what Gary's advice is 100% spot on, but how do you tactically do that? And the way that I do it is I think of a few frameworks. First of all, I believe that every single team should have a hacker, a hustler, and a hipster. A hacker is your coder or your CTO. Your hustler is the business guy, oftentimes the CEO, and the hipster is the designer. And that's the one that I see gets left out a lot. Is design is like, well, we have a graphic designer. No, I want a designer on the top 3 of the team. Harsh, you spoke about Airbnb. Those guys are not engineers. They're actually both designers. But I think you try to build a team, a hacker, a hustler, and a hipster. Okay, how do you do that? Well, I would usually say that you can put yourself in one of those buckets. Am I the technical guy? Am I the business guy? Or am I a designer? And then for me, I am the hustler. So what I do is if I'm starting a company or I'm starting a new division, I write down every single technical person that I know on a piece of paper or on a Google Sheet, every single CTO that I know. And then in COVID, I asked to have a Zoom call with them. And I will ask them and I will say, hey, listen, here's my idea. Here is the pitch. And I pitch them on the idea. And then I don't ask them to join the company. I say, and who are the top 3 technical people, because you're technical and I respect you, that you would recommend? And I just keep asking and having more and more meetings and ladder up. And I don't ask anyone to join the company because I think that should happen naturally. But using that framework, and then you do the same thing on the designer side. Who are the best design people I know? Pitch them on your idea and ask them for the top 3 design people that might want to be involved in this. Who should I speak to? And so that's kind of how I tactically think about building out teams.
That's a very interesting point, right? The important roles of 3 different entities which you mentioned. Just to that, I would like to kind of add one more point over here. A lot of the times what happens is when you're starting an early stage company, you're very extremely wary about, any potential conflict, right? Sometimes what tends to happen is the engineers, they have their own way of thinking. The designers, they have their own way of thinking. And you have business people who have their own way of thinking, right? There could be a potential disconnect in the way of thinking, and because of that it could lead to potential conflicts. It is extremely important to bring those conflicts up right from day one, so that what happens is it can create some healthy communication. So it's extremely important, not only to bring those conversations up, so I also at the same time to keep your egos at the door. Once you're building a startup, there's no room for ego over there, because you need to kind of ensure that the startup is a success no matter what, right? So if when those conflicts arise, and your focus should always be on the conflict and on the problem and on the company. If someone is criticizing the argument which is being made, do not take it personally, and even the one who's making the criticism, even they should not make it at a personal level. The focus always has to be to the problem and towards the company. It should never be personal, because that is exactly why most startups fail, is because of co-founder conflict. And this such a small issue, but it can completely implode the company internally. And I have been, just like you guys, I've been seeing hundreds of such examples where companies have completely imploded it internally because of these kind of issues. And that's why it is important, not to keep it under the hood. Let it come out, let the issues come out, and discuss that healthily without letting egos come in the way, and always realize that the focus is more towards the company and not on the person. So just my 2 cents which I wanted to add to that. So let's see the next question that we have. We have Abhishek, who's asking the question that there's a new trend that startups and companies are moving out of Silicon Valley and moving to Texas. So can you guide me which city to choose, as a major chunk of revenue would be coming from USA? Gary, Derek, would you like to take that one?
I mean, I can jump in. So I mean, the situation in Austin, Texas is a very nice place. So is Miami, Florida. There are initiatives to be able to, for startups to move for a whole variety of reasons. Housing costs are a lot less. Um, Taxes are less, but you just go back to it. I mean, in 100 years, they're going to talk about Silicon Valley, that Silicon Valley is the Athens of the information age. I mean, what happens? So founders from all over the world just happen to be located there. It's kind of like, if you're going to go out and you're going to go fishing in a pond, you want to make sure that you have fish in the pond. Well, Silicon Valley has a lot of fish, right? Has a lot of contacts, has a lot of money. So, I mean, you can go to Austin, but it's just not the same. It's not even close. So, of course, they're pushing it. Of course, people like Elon Musk are talking about it because he's upset about taxes and that kind of thing. But when it's all said and done, Silicon Valley is still the heart of where it happens. Stanford University is not in Texas.
Got it, got it. Very interesting points there. Probably the biggest reason why Elon Musk is mentioning is about the taxes, right? The
Yeah,
conservative states are known to be lesser in taxes compared to the democratic states.
exactly. I mean, the situation, he's just mad he couldn't get a tax concession. And so I'm sure that's the reason behind it. So he figured, he would jerk their chain a little bit. And then, some of the companies now are coming to Miami, which is a good thing. It's good to spread it out. I talk about decentralized, having decentralized teams. But if I want to raise money, if I'm in Palo Alto, it takes me 5 minutes to go to Sand Hill Road. If I'm in Texas, I'm not going to find the amount of venture capitalists that I find in California. Just not going to happen. Yes, the cost of entry costs a lot more. Yes, it's more expensive to live there. But, it's like, you make more money, there are more opportunities. Where do you want to go? You need to make the determination, and what your appetite is. So I would say Silicon Valley, by far, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Santa Clara, San Mateo, that's just the place to go if you want. If you want to grow quickly, if you want to have the right valuations, that's a place. You'll find the valuations as you move away from the valley are a lot less.
Got it, got it. Very interesting thoughts. I have another very interesting question from Balakrishna. Traction can be achieved with relative ease, but engagement is an interactive process and needs time. How do you convince early stage investors on the consumer journey? Derek, would you like to take that?
I mean, I think whether you're convincing early stage investors and early stage customers, it's kind of similar, right? I mean, look, there's a few things I think about in terms of investors. One, they don't want to lose their money. They want to make their money. Two, they don't want to miss out on an opportunity. And three, they don't want to look stupid. In terms of investors wanting to make money, especially venture capital, we dress up venture capitalists, but what really are they? They're wealth advisors that allocate other people's money into high risk investments that we call startups. And so that business creates a conflict with entrepreneurs. And you can read about why, more about how VC works. But the biggest conflict that exists between VC and entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs raise money to keep their business alive. Let's be real. I need to eat. I need to provide for my families, and I need to have my startup work. So I'm going to raise capital to do so. And I need to pay my employees. If I don't have capital, I can't pay my employees. The problem with that is investors only want their money going towards growth. They don't care if your business is open or you eat or you could provide for your families. That is not, of course, they might care on a personal level, but on a professional level, they are allocating capital for growth. And that is the hardest thing, because there are so many things that have to take place in order for your startup to grow. And what an investor is going to say to you, that's fine, figure those out, be scrappy, or, you know, get shit done. But my money is going to be put into the startups that are growing. And so what you need to be able to do as much as possible is tell your story about growth, and think of it, describe the story that you have built this flaming fire, and it's a huge bonfire that is taking off and swarming the country of India or swarming the city of Mumbai. And if you pour gasoline on it, it's just going to go like this. And if you think about it from that story, you can do it. It's like, Mr. Investor, I got 4 weeks ago, we got our first customer. And then we went from 1 to 3, and then we got 5. And today I'm raising $500,000 so I can add 1,000 using those same methods. I think that's like centrally important to tell that story of growth. One other quick point, Vandana has mentioned pitch decks a couple times. One of the things that I think is absolutely bonkers is if your traction slide is not near the front of your deck. And, you know, I met an entrepreneur yesterday that has $1 million in ARR, and it was his 15th slide. You know what I said to him? I would say, hey, my name is Jack, and I have a startup with $1 million ARR. What's your name? Like, you got to get that traction story to the front, because that is ultimately what investors are investing in. They are not investing in your, like, you hear all this stuff, oh, the team, and, you know, yes, that stuff matters, but ultimately those are the engines that are going to make my stuff grow. The next part is, you know, how do you de-risk it? And so I'm going to give you money. How do I know that your growth isn't going to stop? How do I know this? Well, that's where your team comes in. That's where your advisors comes in. That's where your great deck comes in. Your de-risking concerns. Because I don't want to miss out. Famously, Fred Wilson, famous investor, misses out on Airbnb, and he's written about it, and he looks stupid over it. But one other quick thing that I would say is, you want to have traction. You want to have a unique insight and an original idea that is unique. And it's clear how you are different than your competitors. But you don't want to be so out there that you look stupid. And that's why when there's some things that are just check the box, when Vandana says, do your pitch deck like this, do it like that. When you use the right attorneys, have the right advisors, create acronyms that are similar. So like, there's software as a service. Maybe you're not a SaaS company, but maybe you're bidding as a service, or lawn mowing as a service, or no code as a service. So you can create as much similarities as possible, so you're not going to make me look stupid as an investor. I think all of that, I hope that was helpful. But if you could put all that together, I think you can tell a very good early story.
Very interesting points there, especially the first part, right? Regarding what are the agendas of the investor and the VC, right? The focus is to generate returns. For it, it doesn't matter they startup. At the same time, to this query, I would kind of also like to add that it's not just to convince the investor. The focus should be on convincing the customers, right? You need to ensure that you're convincing the customers that they are willing to engage with you on the long-term basis. The biggest way for a startup to succeed in the longer run is to have a longer to have your customers retaining with you for a long time, so that over their life cycle, they tend to buy with you a lot more. So you can always acquire new customers through paid ads and all that, but that is not something which is interesting to an investor. What is interesting to an investor is to see that you don't have to demonstrate that. The numbers will do the talking for you. And if you have that good retention rate at the end of the year, if 60 to 70% of the customers stick with you for more than 1 year or 2 years, that then shows that that what you're saying is actually true. And then it is the investor who will come up come with the money after you, rather than you chasing the investor for giving you the money. That's how then the complete system changes, right? So you need to focus more on the product and try and get that engagement out of it, rather than trying to convince the investor that yes, that is in fact true. So that was my 2 cents on that. We have one other investing interesting question over here. How do investors count CAC and LTV, and what are the typical metrics which the investors look at when deciding to invest in a startup? So, Vandana, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, sure. Harsh, could you repeat the question?
So, essentially, how do investors count CAC and LTV? I'm assuming it's the same way as we founders do, but how do investors count CAC and LTV, and what other metric are being used by investors to evaluate a startup?
See, during the pandemic time, the investors' mindset has totally changed. They do look at three factors. One is what is the promoter's background, what is the technology that they are building, and what is the revenue that they are bringing on the table. So, and if they are presenting, like Derek mentioned, that the traction slide, which I totally agree with, is always at the end, and which has to be somewhere in the beginning. Because naturally, what is the investor looking at? What is your traction? Investor also wants to multiply his money. It's their hard-earned money that they are putting into your startup. Why would they put it if they don't see anything coming up there? So I think, for every startup, the investor looks at it at a different way. There is no particular like a formula, like this is how it is done or this is how it is evaluated, but these are some of the basics. Also, what is the technology that you are bringing on the table? Is it, like Derek mentioned, is it something really disruptive, like something which is helping COVID patients, something, which is helping the entire society? Is it anything disruptive? What is it that you are building? Or is it just a mere idea that you are trying to build? Then Gary mentioned that to know your customers. Many and do the survey. Many startups don't do the survey on their customers. They don't know their market audience. They're not reaching out to the right kind of customers. So I think that's another factor that the investor does look at. And we are presenting many startups. They present. I have been a judge on many shows before, wherein many startups present themselves to the investor, but they don't know how to present themselves. So when we are going to somebody's office, or investor's office, how are we going to present? We are definitely going to be dressed up well. We'll have a presentation in order. What happens is that generally the events where the startups are pitching, they look at it very casually, and they don't introduce themselves properly. They don't introduce their startups properly. They're dressed up casually. They just behave very casual when it has to be a formal thing. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration. These kind of events are very elite, and one needs to have the right kind of practices to how to present, how to make your pitch deck. You can reach out to us. We do guide a lot of people how to make the right kind of pitch deck, and how to put the slides in the right manner, which slide to put where. Also, how many slides to have is also very important. So I think this is my take, Harsh. Hope I've answered your question.
Definitely, Vandana. Lots of points which are covered over there. So we have a specific question for Derek over here. Is there any standard index of pitch deck slides? Derek?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few. The one that we use is if you Google a woman, Donna Griffith, I like hers. And she's like the pitch deck queen of Silicon Valley. So I can, I'll put that in the chat. But I mean, I mean, it's, look, the bottom line is you should always start with the problem. You should go to a solution. I think most people know that. I think the one thing people don't do is they don't show their product. Like, I don't want to hear about it. Just show it to me in 30 seconds. Don't show me a video. Like, give me a quick demo. Like, I think it's a problem if you can't demo your product right very quickly. And then show me your traction. What are the benefits? And I think one thing that people miss is they assume that investors know what makes you unique, and they don't compare themselves to competitors. Like, exactly how are you unique? And how is that uniqueness solving the pain point that's leading to this wow for users? That's going to be your competitive moat, because most startups don't really have anything else that makes them competitive at an early stage. And, you know, Consumer Act and all that stuff, you know, certainly customer acquisition cost is important, and your margins are important. I think a lot of times first or second time founders get a little tripped up by financials. I think what you need is you need to have 3 or 4 core financial metrics off the top of your head that you should be able to name in your sleep that are driving your business. And then the other ones, I think you can push it to the spreadsheet. But if you can't name, like, what are your major cost indicators, what are your margins, when you're going to become break even, what your customer acquisition cost is, you know, you should be able to name those by heart as the CEO and not need your finance guy. And, you know, I mean, I can send a specific, you know, kind of guide that I like that Donna Griffith uses, but I also feel like there's a lot online, and different VC shops have different opinions, but I think generally speaking, they're all around there. One change is I do think if you're like Gary Fowler, or you're not a first-time founder, you can start with who you are and how this is an evolution of your career, and then go to the problem. But other than that, you really do need to start with why and start with what the problem is.
Got it. Interesting. Thanks, Derek, for those thoughts. Lots of interesting points over there. I see that we now have Tushar back. He's been facing some technical issues. So there's this specific question which we have over here. What do we do when we are stuck with the need to raise money, but the product is still POC and we need more capital to make it more competitive? How do we raise funds at that point of time?
It's a chicken and egg story, but you know, matter of fact is, if you have something firm in hand, which is a minimum viable product, and if you have that thing in hand and you are able to give a good demo of your product, then of course the chances of you getting funding are much more, and also you have something substantial to ask for on the valuation front. But you know, if you are just a POC, and you are, so you know, there are so many unknowns that what happens is that even if there is a lot of attraction in the mind of the investor to go ahead and put some money, but end of the day, it's a negative decision to take. So you know what I mean is that uh, given that everything looks fine, the decision might still be negative. So, so you know, it's always better to arrange some friends and family money, and to bootstrap your project till the time you have a good product to show, and you have you know, even if you are able to do your product market fit, then nothing like it. I mean, you know, I've seen companies who managed to grab dollars very nicely once they have a PMF, and this is not true only with one sector, it is true with a number of sectors. So my sense is that there is nothing wrong in going early to raise money, but then your expectations should be, see, if you are a zero revenue company and you ask for $1 million valuation or a $2 million valuation, there is no way to differentiate between 1 million and 2 million, because end of the day there is no revenue. End of the day the business is still not earning money. So how does people go for Y Combinator like safe notes, and but those have legal challenges, so that becomes a problem. So my advice to you is that you might not do the whole product, but at least do a bit of it by bootstrapping or taking friends and family money, and then going out to raise funds.
Got it, got it. Thanks, Tushar. Thanks for those insights. We'll take this one last question before we can, we'll start with the presentations, right? So one question which we've gotten over here is, how do we kind of localize our business when we're looking for global expansions, right? Different markets have different requirements, and each have their own thoughts and processes, each have their own customer mindsets, right? So how do we localize the products for different global markets? I think Gary would be the best one for this, considering that he's worked in so many international markets.
What's the question again, Harsh?
Essentially, how do you, each country has a different market, right? So how can a startup adapt to different markets and different consumer segments?
Yeah, I mean, so going into the markets, so each one of the markets, part of it is you've got to be culturally sensitive, door number one. I lived in Russia on and off for almost 14 years. It's about being culturally sensitive, door number one. Then it's about customer development. One more time, it's about taking your product out to that market to see how they react. Do you have to tweak it? My rule is generally that 80% of what you have will work in the market, but sometimes it has to be adapted and changed. So that's part of it, doing your customer development. The other thing is, remember, when you're going down through startups, you need to make sure you do it in a, you're not 100% in, you do your testing first and test your hypothesis. Because one of the reasons that startups fail is they go so far in, startup offices, start branching out in that country before they're sure that the product or service is going to sell. So that's door number one. The other thing is, you want to make sure that you have great partners in those locations, because having somebody that's local that understands the market, understands the culture, and understands the mindset is really important. You want somebody that's directly worked in that environment, that's worked with customers that are similar, that can really help you and guide you to success in that particular region. So that's what I would do. I mean, some of the ways that I do it, with each country is, on the US side, we have the Chamber of Commerce, and we also have the Commercial Services Group within the embassy. The Commercial Services Group in the US Embassy can go out, and I'm sure it's the same in the Indian embassies, can go out and help you develop partnerships and services for relatively low cost, and to give you a lot of insight into that market, because generally they're locals that are involved. So many times I'll use that, and it gives credibility. I'm sure the Indian embassy has the same services abroad. So those are some of the easy ways to do it. And of course, one of the things now during this pandemic that's critically important, that each and every one of you need to have visibility, on the internet, on the web. You need to make sure people can Google your name to figure out who you are and what you're doing. So, it's not the time to be shy. It's the time to be looked at as an expert. So you need to write. You need to be involved in events just like we have here today. You need to get out in the market, and you need to be active, because think about it. It's not so easy for those VCs, those family offices, to find you either right now with the pandemic raging in many parts of India. So use the resources, use your resources. There was a movie many years ago called Indiana Jones. I remember Harrison Ford was with Sean Connery, and he said, choose wisely. And part of what you need to do, startups, is you need to choose wisely. But you got to move fast. You need to really get shit done quickly. It's about speed and the preciseness of the execution.
Got it. Interesting. A lot of interesting points over there. Tushar, would you like to add anything over there?
I would like to say that anybody who's missing out on, any the fact that we are, staring COVID in the face. It's making a big mistake. So while the investors are still ready with checks and the deal flow has been strong, just have a look at VC Circle, have a look at your story, and every day the fundings are happening. I would say that probably four deals. I mean, look at four unicorns got created in the month of March itself from India. So the deal flow is very strong. The check writing capacity is strong, and there is never a better time to go global. So that factor is always there. But uh, do watch out for COVID as to what priorities you make in your decisions in terms of money deployment, in terms of which markets to catch first, to focus on the main products in your, which is getting you your cash flows, to focus on process improvement and restructuring. So my sense is that just play with all these factors in mind, and having a good investment banker by your side who can take you to the right people in the right manner, get the right documentation, that is very critical. So choose your support wisely as well.
Thanks, Tushar, for that. And just my small 2 cents on that is, anytime you're looking to make your business global, it's extremely important that you need to have local on the ground people to help you with the business setup, right? It's practically impossible that if you're staying in India, you can do the setup in Singapore, you can do the setup in USA, you can do it in UK. It's practically impossible, right? You need to deploy local people in those countries who can help you not only with the setup, not only with the incorporation, but even running the operations, because it is the local people who will understand what languages, what people likes are there, what people's biases are there, what people's preferences are there. It is from staying in one country like India, you do not know what a person in Singapore wants. You do not know what a person in Australia wants. You do not know what a person in UK wants. So it's extremely important to hire these local people, and then they'll kind of give you those insights of how to take your business globally. You cannot do that everything by yourself. No matter, everyone would have that believe that they are the Hercules and they can do everything, but quite honestly, it doesn't work that way. You need people, you need help, and you should not be afraid to ask for help. Startup founders tend to have that mindset that we'll run the marathon by ourselves, we don't need anybody. But it's extremely important to ask for help at the right time, because that is how you can truly be able to grow, right? Sometimes you may not. So particularly if you take in today's day and age, there are a lot of political sensitivities as well, right? One wrong thing that you say or do can completely ruin the reputation of your company for good. So that is why it becomes all the more important that you are extremely politically sensitive and bear those considerations in mind when you're looking to expand into another geography, right? So these are some major important points which you need to consider before you think of expanding globally, right? So one final question which we would like to take over here: what are the common mistakes most B2B startups make? Gary, would you like to take that one?
What did you say? What mistakes startups make? Harsh.
Most common mistakes B2B startups makes, business to business.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I said the premature scaling is really one of the big mistakes that companies make. I talked about developing. They need to develop channel partnerships and relationships to really help them grow. What I found is that if you have those types of channel partnerships in place, if you have those types of relationships in place, that can really help you grow your business. What you don't want to do is you don't want to add, from my perspective, having your own direct sales force, too much of your direct sales force, and spending that kind of money too early on really kills a company. I look about developing those partnerships. The other thing is startups, what you want to do is make sure before you go out that you got some pilots in place, that you got some talking points, some use cases. What I've done before, one of the companies that I was involved in starting, what we did is we actually went out, we had retail, a tool that would tie into merchandise planning systems for retail. So coming right out of the gate, who were the top retailers at the time in the world, or some of the top? So Walmart, Target, Home Depot, Tesco in the UK. So I said, let's go down through and get a couple of them. So we cut a deal with Walmart. As soon as we cut the deal with Walmart, Target came in, used that to leverage Home Depot in terms of a pilot. So from that, then it started to cascade. Companies from all over the US and around the world started to be interested in the product or service. So build those use cases up, build those pilots, even if they're small pilots, but you need those talking points to be able to get out and get a lot of visibility around them. Many times companies don't do that. The other thing is, from a B2B side, a startup side in general, make sure you use the rule of threes. You need advisors. What's the big thing that happens with any startup around the world today? What are we talk about? Security and privacy. So you need to have somebody that's on board of advisors that is a security and privacy guru that's internationally known. We have Rick Orloff, the former chief security officer at Apple and eBay, because it comes up all the time. And with Eva, my company that I co-founded 5 years ago, same thing. Two is, and they don't have the right kind of advisors, Harsh. Two is, the other situation is you need somebody that's connected worldwide, globally. So in our case, Bill Reichert, Guy Kawasaki's partner, is our advisor. Why? He's got an MBA from Stanford and Harvard, is one of the top venture capitalists in the world. You need those friendly connections. And three is, you need to have somebody that has a name, recently has gotten a lot of visibility in some type of product or service or a recent exit. I had with Eva, Nick Davidoff, who sold Masquerade to Facebook, and he did it in 4 months after they founded the company. So people like that. So they make mistakes because they got these advisors that are professors that are not they're not really connected. You need those relationships, friendly connections to help you grow your company. You need to have those channel partners out there to help you get out and get the message out using their credibility and their current customer base. Yes, you give up a little something, but it does help. So, and the other situation is, as I said, you need to have an online presence, especially today during this pandemic. So they can go out, look at your company, look at articles about your company, listen to videos, and get a snapshot of who you are and the kind of things that you're doing. And make sure you've got your LinkedIn profiles updated, because anytime they're talking to you, they'll be opening up, or many times they'll be opening up your LinkedIn profile to see who you are. So keep it updated. And many times people don't. They think product. I have the best product in the world and everybody's going to buy it. But that's not necessarily the case. You got to position it properly. That's where marketing comes in.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Gary, for those insights. And definitely, it's extremely important, right? It's not just about the product; it's the right product market fit, as we call it. It has to fit with the market, has to fit with the audience to ensure it's effective, right? So I would like to pass on this desk to Derek, and we'll start the presentation soon. So Derek, over to you.
All right, everyone. We are going to move to the next phase of our event. And we received dozens of applications from startups all over India. We went through, Vandana, Tushar, and I went through those applications. And we picked 5 finalists that are going to pitch today. I will give the order of the finalists in a second, They don't know the order yet, so they're a little confused, but that's okay. But and they are going to pitch for 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. And then the 5 of us will vote on the best one. And the winner receives an automatic entrance into the GSD Labs Accelerator. And I just want to talk for a couple minutes about our accelerator. But our accelerator is an accelerator that is stage and industry agnostic. It is built for international companies that have success in one part of the world and want to enter the United States, and use that as a port to the rest of the world. And we break our accelerator down into 3 phases. The one thing I don't know if Harsh or Gary has mentioned yet is that GSD stands for Get Shit Done Venture Studios. And our accelerator is called GSD Labs. And the accelerator itself is broken down into 3 phases. The first phase is the Get Shit Set phase. And that is where Gary and myself and our team help you with your pitch decks and your messaging and your sales decks. We also have connections with data scientist schools, so we can load you up with data scientists. We have connections with engineering firms that will help you with your infrastructure and scalable software. We also have a partnership with Pillsbury Law, which will give you $2,000 in free legal services. So if you need things like contracts or incorporations, we can get you set there. But the best part of the Get Set stage is the culminating part, which is where we do Mentor Madness, which is 3 weeks of online speed dating for entrepreneurs with US mentors. And everyone loves it. And it's great events. We bring in mentors in product and fundraising and sales. And it's meant to give you ideas and support to get set to become a global company. But it's also a great way to establish relationships. In the United States, we talk about you ask someone for money, you get advice. You ask for advice, sometimes you get money. And the next part of the program is the Get Shit Done phase, which is where we work alongside you, like venture building, which is our roots, helping you get product and fundraising traction. And then the last stage is the Get Shit Funded stage. Last cohort, we had 637 venture capital meetings between the 10 companies that were in there. It's not an India accelerator. We had companies from 9 countries all over the world last cohort, and we'll be doing that this upcoming cohort as well as future ones. And so of those 10 companies, 3 got term sheets and 1 got accepted to a Procter & Gamble accelerator. And the cohort before, we had similar type success. So if you're interested, I posted my link tree in a couple times. It has our website. You can also go on our, you can also email Gary or me. It's just Derek@gsdvs.com and Gary@gsdvs.com. You know, we're more than happy to talk about it, but I just wanted to give you guys some framework. You know, I think we have the best cross-border accelerator in the world. And I'm excited to hear from these 5 companies, and I know the guests are. So the first company that is going to pitch, and 4 out of the 5 companies are already co-hosts. If Niral Network is here, please network or message me and I'll make you a co-host. But the first company that is going to pitch is going to be Flutrr. So give us a chance and you'll be able to share your screen and get situated. And so thank you, Niral Networks. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Flutrr. So we need to stop sharing the slide. Okay.
Hi, Derek and Vandana, Harsh, Tushar, Gary. This is Kaushik. I will share my screen. Our pitches was slightly longer, but I made an edited version of it, which I can take you through in about 5 minutes time.
Perfect.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
We see it.
Yeah,
We're
we
ready.
can.
Okay, so we are Flutter with a small f because we are a youth product and youth don't like capital letters. So we are Flutter. We are the world's first multilingual, which is vernacular, safe and inclusive dating app based on passion. So the dating app market, if you look at worldwide, especially during the pandemic, is has really grown and is continued to grow because I don't think the pandemic is going away in a hurry. Especially the Indian online dating market is growing at 20% per annum and will soon touch USD 800 million in terms of revenue. So why do you want to invest in the India online dating market? First of all, as I said, the Indian market is growing at 20% and it will continue to grow at 20% over the next 4 years. India is the second largest dating market in the world after US. It is driven by almost 100 million single Indians in the age group of 18 to 35. And data from Statista shows that 50% of dating app users in India are paid users. And the other thing which makes us extremely exciting is that there are 500 million non-English speaking Indian internet users, and the next billion internet users from the Indian subcontinent are going to come from non-English, non-Hindi languages. So why does the world need a new dating app? First of all, the existing dating apps do not provide an immersive experience in the vernacular language. If you look at the Indian market, there is Tinder, Bumble, Happen, Isle, all of them are English apps. And as I said, there's a huge chunk of Indians who are already on the internet and are going to join the internet over the next 3 years who do not speak English, who have a very rudimentary understanding of English and are not comfortable dating or doing anything on the internet in English language. Most apps fail to provide a safe dating experience. There are women who complain about cyber stalking, about phishing, about cyber bullying. Most apps create matches based on desirability and looks, and therefore they're not meaningful. And most apps have a very high threshold of premium usership, which makes it not affordable for the Indian market, especially for the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns where the non English speaking audience comes from. So, introducing Flutter, first of all, we will be in all major Indian vernacular languages. We have developed proprietary safety features for women. We have created a proprietary AI algorithm which is going to match people based on passion and not on desirability or looks or proximity. We are making dating affordable. Our premium membership will start at only 200 rupees, whereas if you look at Tinder, Bumble, it starts at 700 rupees per month or more. Vernacular dating is a great opportunity. Indian language is a India is a diverse country with 69% of the people coming from rural India. If you look at Indian dating app Truly Madly, which has 5 million users, 40% of their users come from outside the metro cities. And mind you, Truly Madly is only in English. So if you create a vernacular dating app and take it to the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns of India, the online dating market is going to explode. And having a dating app in a localized language can obviously penetrate this huge untapped market in the non-English speaking geographies pretty fast. So what's our roadmap? Our backend server-side uh, proprietary algorithms are already developed. The front-end UI is already developed. We will launch in 2 months in English and Hindi. We are also thinking of launching in Bengali because that will help us tap into the huge Bangladesh market, followed by a launch in the iOS platform, and followed by 10 Indian languages in 6 months' time. We have the following revenue streams: a premium membership, which I talked about at 200 per month, a one-time profile boost at 40 rupees, and online advertisement where we are going to integrate Google AdMob. So our go-to-market strategy is launch in English, Hindi, Bengali, and continue to launch in the 10 major Indian languages. Target the low-hanging fruit of English-speaking existing users. Create a new market for non-English-speaking dating app users. We are going to use a lot of Instagram influencer marketing, app store optimization, campus ambassadors in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 colleges to penetrate ourselves into the market. The business projections is a total user base of 24 million by the year 2024, a gross revenue of INR 300 crores, and a valuation of 7,000 crores. That is the time we plan to do an IPO and then expand globally to all non-English speaking countries. Our total fundraise that we are looking for over a 20-month period is 2.5 crores, which will help us complete the entire launch of the 10 Indian languages, help us get to zero point 0.4 million registered users, become profitable, and have a valuation of 135 crores. The team is me. I am an MBA and an alumnus of IIM Lucknow with 26 years of sales and marketing and profit center operation experience. I'm the co-founder and CEO. Joydeep is the co-founder and CMO. He's also an engineer and an MBA. And our technology advisor is Kinshuk Das, who's got 17 years of technology industry experience and runs a technology firm called Om Technology Solutions. So we want to join hands with you to create a Flutter in the online dating world.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that pitch. One of the things I forgot to say is that there's also going to be Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
And so I will kick it off. Harsh, you have any questions?
Can I stop sharing my screen or should I continue?
Yeah, stop sharing your screen. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kaushik, for the presentation. I specifically like the localization, with the local languages, right? We need something like that for the Indian market. What I wanted to understand was what kind of current traction that you have, what kind of users are you seeing, what kind of engagement that you're seeing on the app. Can you run us through some of those numbers, the monthly retention rates and those kind of?
So Harsh, the product is not yet out in the market. As I said, my server-side backend proprietary algorithms are in place. My UI is in place. We are trying to put it together and launch in the next 2.5 months.
Okay, got
so
it.
There's no traction number about.
Okay, got it. And so what is your outreach to the market?
Sorry, I lost you there. Your voice cracked up.
Okay. What I meant was, what does your GTM look like? So how do you plan to start outreach in the market?
Yeah. So we want to do 3 things I want to talk about. One is all dating app product success depends on the quality of women profile on the app. I mean, it's a sexist statement. But that's the reality. So we have now started building a base on Instagram with women from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns who are not conversant so much in English, but Hindi or Bengali speaking. And we are tying up with women's brands to give them offers to these women whom we identify on Instagram to come onto our platform, build a profile, and become users of the app. Once that is done, we will deploy a lot of heavy-handed ASO, which is App Store optimization, and social media to reach out to the men in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns. The other thing which I did successfully in my last company, which I started and exited, was campus ambassador route. So you go to campuses, get campus ambassadors to represent you in the colleges, and then they promote your app and promote your product amongst their batchmates, college mates, and their peers. So this is basically a go-to-market strategy.
Okay. Vandana, Tushar,
So
I have no
how much?
questions.
Go ahead, Vandana. Go ahead.
No, no, I was saying I have no questions.
Okay, I do. What kind of? How much are you trying to raise?
At the moment, we are trying to raise only a crore, which is about $150,000,
Uh-huh.
and that would get us to about 100,000 user base in India. And after we have reached 100,000 user base, that is the time when we'll raise the next round of funding.
Kaushik, what does 100,000 user base mean in terms of revenue?
100,000 user base would give me a revenue in Indian rupees of around 10 lakh rupees, which is roughly around $17,000 per month.
And did you? I didn't see that on your slides. Did you put that on your slides?
No, I did not, because I told you I had to edit my slide for a 5-minute presentation.
I see. Okay, but those are some of the things you want to talk about because investors
Sure.
are going to want to look at. That's one of the key things that they're going to want
Yeah.
to look at. When are you going to start revenue, right? And then you're talking about expanding beyond the Indian market. Where are you talking? Where do you want to go? What's next?
Okay, so my localization technology, which I've developed, which helps us get into languages, can work for any language in the world. So the next market which we want to tackle is the Spanish market, because there's a huge segment of population which speaks Spanish, and we essentially want to reach out to Spanish-speaking people in the Americas as the next step for our product once we have established our presence in the Indian market solidly.
Yeah, I mean, there's 647 million people in Latin America, right? As some speak Portuguese, but there's a huge population. Now, that's interesting. And what are you using? Are you using machine learning? How are you actually going down through and making it so you can localize it in the language? What are you using?
We are using machine learning. We are using machine learning, and we have a layer of blockchain, which makes the uh, process of converting the app into a language product pretty easy. My CTO, the way he has developed the product, is that I can do a language in about 2.5 months. Okay, right. So obviously you need money to market once you've got the language product ready, but the app can be turned around in any language in about 2.5 months time.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Tushar, you got anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Yeah, so I just wanted to know that see the dating market in India from an app perspective has been there since a long time, and so some companies which I know they faced a lot of problems because monetization was a challenge.
Hmm.
Anything different you are doing to so that the monetization part is better than other apps? I just wanted to ask this small question.
Yeah. So, Tushar, there are two things. One is if you look at the apps which are present in the Indian market, uh, their threshold level of a person becoming a premium member is extremely high, which is about, it starts at 800, 900 rupees for a person to become a premium member. So that itself acts as a barrier, number one. Number two, their free features are extremely limited, and you have to become a premium member to continue on the app. So they have a huge churn in the app itself. So how we are tackling this is in three ways. One is we'll give a lot of features which are free, and therefore will continue help the people to continue on the app increase my eyeballs and therefore give me advertising revenue. Second is we have kept the threshold of price at only 200 rupees as a membership fee. And the third thing that we are going to do is we are doing like Cred. We are doing a whole lot of tie-ups with branded products who will give free branded offers to my premium subscribers. So suppose you pay 200 rupees for a premium subscription, but you get 100 rupees off on a Rapido ride, right? Or you get a 35% discount on a Z5 membership, or you get a 50 rupees cashback on MobiQuick, right? So what our attempt is, although you pay 200 rupees as a membership fee, I will give you back at least 500, 600 rupees per month through premium branded offers, so that you actually become, you actually gain a whole lot of money by using those branded offers, and then you do not mind continuing the 200 rupees.
Okay, got it. Fine, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hang out and hear how you did. Next up is going to be ConnectPlex.ai. So Ashish, go ahead and share your screen and get situated. You ready, Ashish? ConnectPlex. I see him here.
Hey, Derek, Ashish here.
Yes. Oh, how are you, Ashish?
Very, very nice, Derek. Thank you.
My pleasure. So you should be able to share your screen.
Absolutely.
And we're looking forward to learning about ConnectPlex.
Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you. So I hope everyone over here is staying very safe in this pandemic, staying home, wearing masks, and maintaining distance. First of all, it's been absolutely fantastic to hear, the advice from Gary, Derek, Vandana, Harsh, and Tushar. It's been an amazing session. It's been so amazing, really, that I've thought that from my next presentation onwards, I'm going to be changing the order of the slides that I have, the way I go about presenting, looking at some of the amazing advice I've received. Let me actually incorporate some of your suggestions right away. And so I'm going to be, starting with traction, like Derek mentioned. Traction is what it's all about. We launched the ConnectPlex app 2 weeks back. I've given the link over there. It takes less than 30 seconds to sign up. In a 2-week time frame, we've received more than 50 inquiries and 5 paid users who have committed an annual run rate of $250 each. That's a 2-week time frame. Today we've got 5 inquiries. So it's been an absolutely fantastic traction that we've kind of seen. And with this bit of background, let me actually start sharing my actual presentation. Okay, guys. So let me give you the overall vision, the mission statement over there, and then I kind of come down to the details. So at ConnectPlex, we are going to be building software tools on people data. What that means is that ConnectPlex is going to be the platform to connect business executives with their target audience in an extremely intuitive manner. And we are going to be using AI ML based, we are using AI ML based algorithms to do this. So this is our overall mission. what we have started with is a very specific problem, which has kind of given us this kind of immense interest. ConnectPlex is the world's first, probably one of the very few, if not the only, end-to-end AI-based email marketing solution. What that means is that we are like Zoom Info, but we also take ownership of the delivery of the email to the end user. We only charge our clients if the email reaches the user. If it does not reach, we don't charge. So we are and the entire thing, there are more than 50 AI-based processes that happen at the back end. But from the user perspective, the user takes 30 seconds to sign up and maybe another 5 minutes of help from one of our sales team members. And that's pretty much it. So coming to, so a few fast facts out there. So ConnectPlex was founded by Ashish and Chintan Pipalia. We are brothers. Prior to this, we owned and we ran an IT services firm called Pegasus Infocorp, which we started from scratch and has now scaled up to more than 400 people, $5 million revenue, and doing fantastically well. While running Pegasus, we realized that we used to have a 25-person cold calling team whose job was to generate leads for Pegasus of interested clients. While also running email marketing campaigns in parallel, we've kept improvising it over the last 5 years' time to the point that we realized that our email marketing campaigns, we did not need any cold callers at all. This ConnectPlex was completely replacing these cold callers. So that's the origin of ConnectPlex. Today, our tool out there has a fantastic, it's got 5 million verified emails and so on, growing at a tremendous pace. The customer base is growing at a tremendous pace. We have several planned features, but the first one, which is already live out there, where people have already started paying, is this core email marketing solution. In the future, in our development pipeline, in our product backlog, we are looking at building several AI ML-based features. Some of the pain points, which you guys already know of when it comes to email marketing, bad data, emails going to spam. Those are some of the things that our core app has already addressed. Some of the AI ML explorations which we are working on, again, which is going to be very unique. We already have some POCs in place. We are going to be building on that. Our fastest people connections. If you want to contact Elon Musk, ConnectPlex is going to be a place to go to. Recommendations of similar profiles, reporting, face search APIs. You walk into the GE office and you don't know, you're sitting in the reception and you don't know this person. ConnectPlex is going to help you identify this person through our app. Auto email responses, voice assistant apps. We already have something out there on Echo, on Alexa, on Siri. On the POC stage, we'll be taking it live out there. So if you kind of go ahead and and say that, hey, do you know who's Gary from GST Labs? Our app is going to tell you who Gary is. So let me talk to you a little about the team. I'm going a little fast in my slides in the interest of time. So like I said, Ashish and Chintan are co-founders. Chintan has single-handedly built ConnectPlex from scratch. He was the technical architect at Pegasus when he kind of was managing and built the email marketing apps from zero over the last 5-7 years, which is when we decided to host it as a separate platform. I am from IIT Bombay. I used to work at Capital One in Richmond in Virginia prior to co-founding Pegasus, which is when I came back to India, started Pegasus, scaled it up to more than $5 million revenue. At Pegasus, we have accounts like Hitachi, Aldi, Sugar CRM, Reliance, the whole works, and doing fantastically well. And that's when we've started ConnectPlex, which we launched just a couple of weeks back, and we've been working at it for some time. A little bit on the financials, we are looking at an initial seed investor. We are looking at giving them an absolutely sweet deal. We are looking at raising just $200,000 at a 20% stake. We are looking at giving our initial investors a 100x return on investment within a 1-year time frame. 100x return within 1 year, because this is the first time we are raising external funds and we know the value of this product. So just to summarize, it's a super successful lead generation tool, which can be used across SMEs and enterprises. Scaling up is absolutely imminent with deep investments in AI ML. You have proven entrepreneurs at the helm. We have successfully built a business in the past, and we are looking at super success growth impact at ConnectPlex over the next 6 to 12 months. So that's what we have. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Could you maybe elaborate on what your plans are in the next, 3-6 months and how that corresponds with your growth?
Sure. So Derek, we've been talking to investors and we realized that we are an enterprise B2B SaaS company. We realize that investors are interested in, to your point, the first thing they ask is what's your traction? What are your revenue? What's your numbers like? So we are going to be doing two things. Primarily, we are going to be focusing on traction. Very quickly, we want to reach that $20,000 per month kind of revenue, $20,000 to $30,000 per month kind of revenue, which is what we are trying to reach in the next 3 to 6 months. And in parallel, some of our POCs, we'll possibly take them live. Things you have not seen earlier. Even ConnectPlex in itself is a fantastic, what we've already taken out there is absolutely fantastic. You would not come across firms very easily, which take responsibility for email delivery. No blaming X company for your data being bad, Y company for mails going to spam, Z company for XYZ. We take responsibility for delivery. We only charge if email reaches the inbox. So one thing is the sales part. Second thing is to take some of our other POCs. Like I told you, this example of, asking Alexa, hey Alexa, or Siri, that hey Siri, who's Gary from, GST Labs, and you're going to be getting an answer from there. So some of these things is what we are going to be doing.
That's great. Harsh, do you have any questions?
So Derek, I'm actually already in touch with Ashish, so it might not be fair if I ask any questions to him.
Okay. Tushar, anything on your side?
Yeah, I want to know that what are some of the maybe very few of the things which you are planning there, so that the customer experience around this whole piece becomes qualitatively much better. So if you could give just one or two examples.
Thank you. Fantastic question. I come back to one of the points that Derek brought out in his initial, in some of the question answers. He said every startup needs a hacker, a hustler, and a hipster. At ConnectPlex, we have the hacker and the hustler. We don't really have a hipster. So we probably would need to focus a little bit on that. But having said that, the current ConnectPlex experience from the feedback that we've received from customers, and if you try it out yourself, is absolutely fantastic. It is our whole objective is that it is the easiest app to work on. It will take you less than 30 seconds to sign up, start searching, create a list. One of our sales guys can probably call you if you know email marketing a little bit, you'll be set to go in half an hour. If not, our users, our people will be able to help you and get you set up in half an hour or an hour's time. So our experience is already, our whole idea, if you see on the app, it's the most simple app on the planet.
Okay. So I was actually more asking from the perspective of the fact that people are nowadays quite averse to using emails, and they prefer stuff over WhatsApp, and so while your whole intention of improving the email experience is most welcome, but what are I was just broadly thinking, what are some of the innovations which will help people come up to speed with emails, and just this whole challenge of getting spam emails and misdirected emails, and so a lot of that time wastage will go away.
So Tushar, the whole reason for this is that there has been no ConnectPlex. That's the whole reason email marketing has had such a a negative reputation over the next built over the last 20 years. That's the whole reason we exist. ConnectPlex is a self-marketing tool. I mean, we've not spent $1 on any external marketing medium at all. ConnectPlex markets for itself. The reason why we've got such immense interest, the reason why people have already paid up, is that it just simply works. So yes, the initial app is very focused on a problem which people have almost given up on. They almost don't believe it works, but it does, and we've solved that problem. From the user perspective, it's very, very simple. At the back end, it's immensely complicated. I mean, it's an immense amount of, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Yeah, this is Gary, Ashish. Listen, a couple of things. I want to give you some comments.
Sure.
First of all, the beginning, when you have a confidential slide like that, when you're presenting to a wide audience, it looks kind of strange. I would take it out because, so that's door number one. And I've looked at, thousands of probably 6,000 different or more presentations. The other thing is what you want to do is you want to condense your verbiage. You have too much. And the problem is it's hard to scan it as an investor to look at it. I think what you're doing is right. I built with Findo, which was a predecessor to Eva, we built a Google-like search for the personal cloud using different data sources, including Facebook Messenger and Slack, et cetera. So that point being driven, I understand on the email side, but unfortunately or fortunately, we're looking at different data repositories where we're connecting, right? Slack, for instance. So one of the things that I'm curious about is how you're going to attack that at some point, because my email, in each one of us here, I mean, we're reducing the amount of email and increasing the amount of other points of contact. So I would look at that if I was you. And in terms of the hipster situation, I've seen this situation a lot. I mean, it's a matter of making it sexy and interesting for the folks. So I think I'm intrigued by the idea. I would look at other data sources to be able to tie them in, because that's where the beauty is going to come out. And, if we look at email, of course, the amount of junk email is going up, more email is going up, but quite frankly, people are looking at other data sources to get that information in the contacts. WhatsApp, WeChat, Telegram, et cetera. And I had to go through the same thing with Findo. I had to connect all these other data sources. So sounds interesting. Then what are you doing like with Sugar CRM? What did you do for them? Did you help build it, or what were you doing?
Sure.
Building it.
Sure. Thanks, Gary, for those comments. Absolutely true. I'll remove the confidential slide in my next presentation, and I'm going to reduce. So this presentation has been, more for something to email out. You're absolutely right. When I'm actually presenting,
Ashish, even when you're emailing it out, remember, it's critically important to have bullet points, because those are the things people remember. When you inundate them with too much, like in slide 8, they don't read it. The problem is you got to make it, interesting and just stick out a bit. The team, the founders, boom, right?
Fantastic. Sure, Gary. I think that's fantastic. I'll do that. We'll be improving the presentation. To Sugar CRM, Gary. So at Pegasus, Sugar CRM is one of our premium clients. We work with the Sugar CRM US office. We earlier used to work with a team of Sugar CRM.
What were you doing, Ashish? I'm trying to figure out what your background is, right? What were you doing for Sugar CRM? I'm trying to figure out how that relates to what you're doing today. I know Sugar CRM, right? So what are you doing? Are you doing development work for software development work for them?
Yes, software development work. Correct.
Okay, that's all
Correct.
I wanted to know.
Sure.
I'm trying
to figure
out how you got the expertise to be able to do what you're doing with Connects. Okay.
Sure. So this is just so we've been working on Sugar CRM for the last 10 years. We've been doing development work for them. Yes.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Awesome. Vandana, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Ashish, I have a few suggestions.
Sure.
You do need to revamp your pitch deck. It is not up to the mark. And you need to have a video presentation. What is your traction, if you could tell me?
Vandana, we launched on April 20th. We launched our site on April 20th. We have received more than 50 inquiries. I recruited a sales guy today. We've been constantly recruiting sales guy. Had not expected this. We've already got 5 paying customers who, the login sells at $29 per user per month. We've already got 5 people who committed to annual an annual fee, which comes to. So that's our traction, but it's been overwhelming. We've received 5 inquiries today.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Ashish. We are going to move on to our next, should I say, I guess victim is not really the right word. It's not really a good time to joke like that, especially with Dr. Raju from MayaMD. But we're excited to learn about you. And looks like he is ready to go. So whenever you are ready, my friend.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Gary, for this opportunity. I'm Dr. Raju. So I head the growth and strategy for MayaMD Asia. So we are a clinical intelligence platform for virtual care, decision support, and medical education. So the problem statement that we are trying to solve is the problem of healthcare accessibility and triage. So triage means segregating patients based on high-risk conditions. So in the current scenario, we have been hearing about hospital lack of hospital beds, and now we are only talking about COVID, right? But what if someone has a cancer, someone has some other disease, they will be denied hospital admission. So there are a lot of conditions which can be treated from the comfort of a home through a telemedicine, etc. But this was not the condition probably a year back. In the last 1 year, there has been at least an influx of around 300 plus telemedicine platforms in the market right now in India and Asia. But what we are trying to build is a digital front door for medical consultations. And also, the physicians in India are actually burned out because of the massive number of cases which are coming up. So we have built a system which is a CDSS, and what you're seeing is Maya, and it can be a digital human or it can be a chatbot, and it can be integrated to all stakeholders in healthcare. It can be a hospital, healthcare provider, EMR, telemedicine, etc. We have collaborations with the leading medical university schools like Yale, Stanford, UCLA, Harvard, etc. So this entire project initially started as a tool to improve clinician training through an AI-based algorithm. So our team consists of doctors, engineers, data scientists, etc., and business professionals. So we work currently remote. We have our teams in the US and India, and we are working very passionately to build a system for healthcare. So what completely based on advanced algorithms. We can do chronic care management like diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia. We can do patient education. We can do patient engagement. We can do treatment reminders. We can do telehealth, CDSS, predictive care coordination, 1-minute triage, appointment scheduling, and present illness interviews. So the product portfolio for Maya Asia is the first product is MayaMD. This is a product for patients, so they can come to the application or a web link, and they can put in their symptoms, and in less than 2 minutes time, you get a virtual diagnosis. This can be used by health systems and insurance companies also. Then the second product that we have is Maya EDU, which is a solution for AI-based, the world's first AI-based medical education tool, which can be used to train the future doctors and paramedical staff on clinical intelligence part. And then we can also customize Maya algorithms for individual hospitals. So in case if we have a neuro hospital, we can build those systems in place. And our future product roadmap is to also integrate blockchain architecture with Maya tokens. So it gives patients the entire power of the patient data, because we have been hearing platforms taking away patient data. We are HIPAA compliant and GDPR compliant, and we want to give the power of data to the patients. So what Maya can do is you can check our solution is available in iOS and Android. We have around 70,000 plus downloads in Android and around 50,000 plus downloads in iOS. So you can interact with Maya, and you can also explain your symptoms and questions, etc. We currently cover 7,000 plus clinical conditions and 1,400 plus symptoms. And we can triage to the lowest cost care center, because once we complete the analysis, there's an option wherever you're located. We can triage to the lowest care center, because in India we find places where there's lack of enough doctors, good doctors in places like some places. At the same time, we have a large, really good hospitals in some big cities, so we can triage to the lowest cost care center also. And we can schedule an appointment. We can also schedule whether a telemedicine consultation can be appropriate. EDU, it's an AI-powered medical education platform. It offers a flipped classroom experience, content agnostic, can be used for training, dental, nursing, and allied health sciences too. And the professor can get a real-time feedback on student performance. So, and again, we have some Maya algorithms which can be sold as a standalone solution for clinical pathways for EHR, latest guidelines. It can also support some of the pharmaceutical new products coming to the market. And we recently developed a COVID algorithm based on the AIMS guidelines, and you can just go through the go through this entire pathway in less than 2 minutes, and it's available for free. Currently, we are giving it for free for a lot of hospitals in India right now. And the competitive landscape, we have companies like Babylon Health, Boy, K Health, etc. And what differentiates us is the speed at which we can do the virtual trial. So we take less than 1 minute to get into the diagnosis part. At the same time, we can also look at imaging part, like physical science, lab investigations, and patient can also put in some of their lab parameters, and we can also help them to get all that things to the market. And some of these companies have raised funding of more than 200 million, etc. And the space is actually growing. We have done some studies on our accuracy part, because healthcare, we believe, should be accurate. So we have around 94% accuracy on our solution. We have tested it with actual clinicians. And again, with an ER physician assistant, we have a better accuracy. And also, we did a consumer engagement study to understand how useful it is to use for patients. So it's 89%. This is with the University of Utah. We are also doing a similar study for the Indian market, and we are also doing translations for India languages like Tamil, Bangla, Malayalam, etc., Tamil, etc. So we have just completed the translation. It should be going live in the next couple of weeks. Our GTM strategy is we have our own sales team for large hospital groups. We have channels in some countries like iMedTech for Taiwan, TLS for India medical colleges, and we also are in the process of tying up with large medical associations like CAHO, NABH, etc. Some of our current traction is we have a deal with Al Ghanim Group of Kuwait. It's a large conglomerate, and it's a $20 million deal, which we are trying to implement very soon for the Kuwait market. We have a deal with TLS for some of the medical colleges in India. We have just started in the initial traction part. So we have deal pipeline of over 72 institutes with an average deal size of around 15,000 US dollars. We have also touched base with some of the largest car companies like MG Motors and Nexa. So they're quite interested to incorporate the Maya to the car interface. So in case if you're in a car also, you can interact and disease management, etc. Maya can even advise on taking medications, reminders, etc. We have also seen some good interest from home healthcare companies. So we have some interest from MedRabbits, who is providing elderly care and home healthcare provider network, etc. We have some tie-ups with some large hospital groups in India. For example, Manipal Hospital, we have an exclusive tie-up. We also have some deals coming up from Aster and Rajgiri Hospital. So these are some of our letters of intent which has come up. So we're looking at initial seed of around 150K USD. The objective is to scale the product across India and the Asia, Southeast Asia markets for both patient and also for the medical education segment. The India current market size for digital healthcare is around 640 crores. And we are seeing that every college now is currently shut. All the medical colleges are shut right now, and they are spending more the digital healthcare products. So around 5 to 10 crores are spent per college, and the funds will be utilized for sales for India. and we are looking at expected revenue projections of around 2.23 crore in 2021. Thanks for your patient listening, and I'll be happy to take some calls. Yeah, some questions.
Quick
Thank
question
you.
on your growth. What is impeding you from even growing faster than what you're doing now?
Yeah, so currently what has happened is, hospitals want to take this solution at the same time. The try, just the COVID trial is needed. So we are just giving the COVID trials right now, but we can analyze 7,000 plus symptoms. So that's currently the problem, but we are expecting the situation will improve in the next couple of months. And we are using the COVID algorithm to get an access to the hospital. At the same time, we will start selling it after a couple of months' time.
Got it. Vandana, we should be letting you go first anyways. Do you have any questions?
Your team slide didn't have pictures of your team. So kindly
Okay.
put that. And why did
Yeah.
you choose the name Maya?
Okay.
Just my curiosity, because Maya means something else.
Exactly. So, we get these questions quite a lot. So what we believe is it's an Indian system, right? The Maya part, but it's quite a name which is very resonating with different cultures. So there's a Maya in Russia. In US also, we find a lot of Maya. It's a very universal name, and we believe it should be like a Siri for healthcare, Siri or an Alexa for healthcare. That's why we chose the name Maya.
And what differentiates you from the others?
Pardon, ma'am?
What is your differentiator?
One is we analyze 7,000 plus clinical conditions. That's the largest number in the world right now. Our closest competitor can only analyze around 1,000 plus conditions. And then second part is the speed at which we can diagnose. We take say 2 minutes to diagnose. So that it's not very hard on the patient, because if a patient is answering a 30-minute question, like some of our other competitors take around 30 minutes to answer a question, by the time the patient is really tired. And we believe Indian patients don't have that kind of patience to do that. Second is we have 1,400 plus symptoms, and we can do that very fast. And our accuracy also for 94%.
And where are you based, Dr. Raju?
Currently, I am staying in Kerala, Cochin. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Tushar, you got anything? You're on mute. You're on mute, Tushar.
I have some stuff, Derek. I can go.
Go ahead, Mr.
So,
Fowler.
Dr. Raju, so a couple of things. And, I like what you're doing. It's interesting. We talk a lot. I've actually spoken recently and written about from smart assistants to intelligent assistants in the medical space. So a couple of things I'm curious about. One is how the training sets, how big are the training sets for the data? That's door number one. And was slide 27 or 28 your knowledge graph?
I lost you, Gary, in between. I think my network is a bit bad. I don't know.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Better.
So did you hear the part about the smart assistant and intelligent assistants for?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yes.
Talking about the data set. Yeah.
So the training, how big is a training set?
We have the data from around 3,000 plus patients right now, and once we keep on adding, and it's a self-learning ML. So once we get more and more patients from the hospitals, the system can learn better about the patient. That's how we have built it.
And then I saw there was a slide you had, either 27 or 28. Is that your knowledge graph?
Pardon?
There's a slide you had.
Yeah, the last one. Yes.
That's your knowledge.
Yeah,
graph.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't get to see it.
Right.
You briefly went over it, but I'd be curious to take a look at it. So.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that is, I like is that, I didn't get a chance to drill down. I wanted to look at it closer, but one of the things that is for the future is tying things like smart pills and IoT into these types of systems. So not only would it be able to use the unsupervised AI to to help with a condition, but actually use the real data to be able to, under a physician's guidance. So I like it. Okay, fitness tracking. So tell me a little bit about the fitness tracking. How does that relate? Does that tied into is that tried?
Currently not. Currently, it's not a part of it, but some of the partners that we're working with, they have a lot of devices which they are manufacturing. So they're biggest, largest manufacturers of fitness devices. So we have a plan to get in the future also, like we can look into fitness tracking, etc. But at this point, we are not tracking fitness. This is a kind of a very futuristic plan.
Well, I mean, the thing is, that's where this thing starts to become really beautiful, right? Because you're taking the fitness tracking and you're tying it into their overall physical condition using real data to be able to do it. And, not just weight and heartbeat, but you can actually drill down and really come up with some very interesting scenarios and predictions, right? So that's really interesting. No, I like where you're going with it. And these are some of the tools, some of the ways of the future with unsupervised AI and these not smart but intelligent assistants tying things together. So it's interesting. The only thing I like your slide with your team members, but you got a lot of team members on there, and sometimes you can actually overwhelm people with too many. You might want to skinny that back a bit, and you want to talk about that fitness tracking is going to be important, Dr. Raju, in the future, because that's where you start to get real corporate interest. And the kind of companies that would be interested in purchasing you, look at or working with you. So an Apple of the world, or Google of the world, at the same time as, the insurance companies, because if you take an Aetna or United Healthcare Group, I'm just talking about the US for now, but those kind of companies could be really interested because they're really moving in this direction too.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, thanks for the comment, Gary.
Raju, Harsh here. I had a question. You mentioned that you have a data set of 3,000 people, right? So can you tell me, with that's a very small sample set, right? For a typical ML algorithm which is required. So how did you manage to get it so efficient in terms of, the accuracy is high and the speed to response is high? How did you get that with such a small sample set?
The thing is, we actually look into the best medical textbooks and the latest guidelines which come up every day. That's how we get in the diagnosis part. So it doesn't matter, even if you have more and more data set to be added, it doesn't matter much for the diagnosis part. But the data set what we use is predominantly on the ethnicity part. For example, there are some conditions which are more common in India rather than in the US. So, our data set comes from multiple ethnicities. So to train the algorithm, and also we want to have a gender diversity, that some conditions are more common in some gender and some age group. So this 3,000 was what required us to build it, but it's a work in progress, we understand. And once we start adding more and more patients, it will start getting better.
Got it. And I probably must have missed it. I am not sure. Is there an NLU component as well to the entire AI that you've developed?
Yes. So the is the natural language processing, right? NLP or
under both NLU as well as NLP. Is that component there as well?
Language also. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed you there. I had some connectivity issues. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, so the Maya can process the language also. So currently it's in English, but we are adding more and more languages. So we have completed for Chinese and Arabic. And it can work that way also.
And multiple regional dialects, because for example,
yes,
across India the dialects are different. Even in if you go to a country like France, the Paris French is different than Nice French, right? So dialect. Does it account
dialects?
For the dialect?
I know. Yeah, dialects is a bit tricky, but we have started with languages now, and we'll slowly get into dialects part. So we will take one part of Hindi right now, and if you look at a small state like Kerala, there are 14, 15 dialects. So we will look at the written form, which is more common, like how you do that for a newspaper, etc. That's what we're looking at this time in being, but we'll slowly improve on the dialects also.
Got it. Cool. Thanks, Raju. I really like what you're doing here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, should we let him off the hot seat?
Yeah. We are good.
All right, Raju, Dr. Raju, thank you very much. Next up is going to be, I'm going to screw this one up. eGyanam.
eGyanam.
How do I say it?
I don't know. eGyanam, I think.
eGyanam.
eGyanam.
Yeah.
Well,
Hi,
I do know that it's Sudeep. So Sudeep is going to introduce his company to us. And we're really excited to have you here. So whenever you're ready, we're ready to learn not only the name of your company, but why you're kicking so much butt.
Hi, this is Sudeep. So is my screen visible and am I audible clearly?
100%, my friend.
Thank you. So yes, we are Team eGyanam. And in India, Gyan is a Sanskrit term which is basically for knowledge. And for things which are connected to the new world like internet and the electronics, it's E. So that's why we work in area which is an advanced learning of cybersecurity and AI. And that's where we chose the name as eGyanam. Okay, so coming to our pitch. So we are eGyanam Tech, working in the area of making cyber response fast, effective, and affordable. We have a strong team in place. In terms of founders, I have about 30 years of industry experience. I had privilege of setting up IBM's practice in India in 2013. In my last role, I was the global head of security for Wipro. My other two co-founders, Rashmi and Mrityunjay, have another 30 years cumulative security experience. We have got a team in place, and we have got lots of friends and people who are helping us in the background. Cyber war is on, and there's a lot of similarity between a conventional and a cyber situation. The equivalent of a radar in our field is a security operations center or a SOC, where people look at the attacks which are coming from an enemy who is invisible. The challenge is the response in cyber field, despite all the investments in technology world over, is manual. So it's slow and it's error prone. And that's what is the real problem. The real problem in cyber defense is these days that attack time is much faster than the response time. There's a need for speed, there is a need for intelligence and strength. To a common person, the answer should be, why don't we automate? But it's not such a straight thing. There are multiple things which have to go along for automation to become successful. Cybersecurity and automation has a huge market. This is a hot space in terms of acquisitions. Name any big company, they have done an acquisition, and US happens to be the largest market for it. So we are trying to come out with a new category of solution, which we are calling as AWAR, Advanced Warning and Automated Response, where we believe that yes, automation is going to be the core, but there are 4 other important elements, starting with threat intel, aggregation, skills, and internal health, which have to be there working in cohesion for an effective cyber defense. So our offerings are ready. So in next 18 months, we are launching our different offerings around automation, intelligence, and diagnostics. It's a small call, so and our product is very industrial, so I may not be able to show you a demo, but this is how our 2 products are going to look like, the automation and the intelligence one. So for us, automation is not something new. In fact, there are very big players in it. So we are targeting 2 segments into it. One, what we call is an effectiveness segment, the segment where people have invested in automation, but it's not working. So they need some additional technology which can complement it. That's one market. And typically organizations are there who have spent about $150K to more. But like oxygen in these days in India, everybody needs it. Security and automation cannot be only for rich and few. There has to be an affordable space which is much larger. So the other market we are looking at is where we can have a much more affordable solution, which is around $35,000 between that to 80,000, and which is going to be a much larger market than the markets which the bigger players are currently looking at. So our strategy is very simple. We want to complement and complete the offerings of the bigger players. We are lucky to have the best names like an IBM or a Splunk as our players in automation field. So they are in fact helping us take, in marketing where they take us to their customers because we help complete some of the aspects. And our approach has been validated in the sense that there are very large organizations in India, including the largest bank of the country, who have looked at our solutions and who have taken them because they bought the global solutions from the IBMs and Splunks of the world. But to complete, they had to select our component as well. So this being the effectiveness part of the market, the other which is the affordable one, where there are no players and where we'll have an easier run. These are the orders which we got. And in terms of our progress this far, we have been there for last 4 years. And because of our connects, and also we wanted to establish relationships and partnerships, we did consulting work, which helped us, fund our product development, our product journey. We have been bootstrapped till now. And we have received orders from IBM, from PwC, from HCL in India, and even abroad. And they are going to be the partners for the products which we are going to sell. In terms of numbers, in about 3.5 years of a journey, we have made around 3.5 crores of business. Of that, about 40 lakhs is a product business, which translates to around 480K in terms of US things. Since last year, we are focusing only on products. And now we are poised to launch our products starting next 6 months onwards. And that is where we are also in the market for looking for funds. And as US happens to be the largest market, there is a time when we have to reach US, sooner the better for us. In terms of our current offices, we have a company incorporated in India and also one in Dubai, a formal company incorporated in Dubai for our Middle East operations. We have been awarded at different forums in India, and there is some traction. Now we are looking for partners, mentors who can come on board and help us achieve our goals. Thank you. Are you ready for questions now?
So could you talk a little more about your customer and who you're targeting? Like who specifically uses this? Is this like network operations or like who's the user?
So typically what happens is, just give me a moment. Let me see if I can take you to the slides. So typically what really happens is organizations set up what is known as a cyber security operation centers to manage security 24/7. So it's like you would have seen there are big screens and large teams in movies and other places. So every large organization worth its names has a security operation center, which we call as a SOC. The challenge is the detection happens almost immediately, but the response, because there are humans involved, it takes typically 15 minutes or 4 hours. And that is, and an attack takes just about 2 minutes at the best in cyber world. And this is a worldwide problem. This is not something which is for India. It applies to almost 99% of the security operations center worldwide. I would leave out some super SOCs of the governments like NASA, etc. But any other name you can think of has this problem. And as a global head of security for Wipro, I had managed more than 700 clients worldwide, and the problem has been almost with each one of them.
Got it. Gary, you have any questions?
I'm here. So question for you. You talked about traction. What traction do you have today?
Just give me a moment. Let me show you. So like I said, we have been a bootstrap company. And we have taken 4 years to reach to this stage.
Right.
For a consulting, since I've been ex-IBM, I've been very well connected in the industry. We have got consulting work from IBM, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, from HCL. So just to tell you that the largest bank in the country was is supposedly managed by HCL, but they had outsourced it to us. For last 2.5 years, we were managing the security operations for the State Bank of India, which is the largest bank in the country. But so that is on the consulting side. But because of this, we have also got product orders. Like Wipro is another large company, a global company, which was doing a project for Rajasthan government. And they had bought a SOC where they had bought solutions from IBM's Resilient, which is their automation solution. Unfortunately, that solution and the RSA, which is another global solution, they could not talk to each other. The project was at a standstill. So our project was brought in to establish communication between the two existing products. Like I said, the global products, they come on the ground in the heterogeneous situation. There are situations of compatibility and of connectivity. So that is a thing which some of the global solutions are not addressing. And that is how we have, and this solution of ours has been there since 2018. Another situation, State Bank of India had an older SOC, and it has just set up a new SOC on Splunk for about 250 crore rupees, the largest deal in a SOC. So like all banks would do, banks say that I will run my old application and I'll run my new application both in parallel. So they wanted the new SOC from Splunk and the old one from RSC to run. And they also wanted to have a single view, somebody, so that they can manage it properly. There was no such solution available. That's wherein our solution has been accepted and bank has issued an RFP to us. So I also want to add this, like this competition, this pitching we are doing, last year Credit Suisse has also selected us and recommended for their internal US arm for an investment. But obviously we were too young, too immature at that level. I think that's something we will still explore after next 2 years. So in terms of traction and in terms of acceptance, there has been, and there's a big pipeline.
Sudeep, I've done a lot of rebranding. The Click software I mentioned earlier today was called IET, Intelligent Electronics. You might want to think about, I like what you're doing. We work a lot in cybersecurity space. So it's interesting for me, but you might want to go down through, the name is hard to pronounce, right? And it's great name. And I know it means a lot, but you might want to think about, keeping it simple. And because what you want to do is make sure that everybody remembers the name and can pronounce. I know it's a simple thing, but I can tell you, having gone down through an IPO with a company that went through this from Israel, you might want to think about, secure, protect. I mean, something that talks to literally what you do, because it'll get their attention.
You're absolutely right. In fact, when we set up the Middle East subsidiary or a company, we didn't name it as eGyanam. This was something 4 years ago. It was dear to us. We have carried with it, but we kept a name which was different. And when we moved to US, we would want to rebrand and make it something which is more connectable to security, instead of for an Indian who understands Sanskrit to understand it.
Yeah, no, I got it. And there are a lot of Indians.
Totally agree with you.
A lot of Indians out there that understand it. I'm just saying across the globe, be just something to think about. So I like your background. I like what you're trying to do. In terms of I understand now your consulting contracts have really helped you keep the business alive, right, till you've been able to come out. So got that. And have you raised any, I didn't see that. Did you raise any money outside or not?
No, so we basically did because we worked in the industry for quite some time. We made our own investment, some from friends, and there have been revenues which have, in fact, for last 2 years, 2018, 19 and 19, 20, we had more than 1 crore plus in Indian rupees, which is more than around $160,000, which is good enough to both fund our consulting team as well as the product development team. And we as founders have not taken any money out. So that is how we've been able to stretch and survive. Now we are definitely looking for funds, and because we believe now that the products are closer to a launch, we need not just a good product, we need branding, we need the best team to sell it, and that will not happen with being bootstrapped. So we are now in the phase where we are looking for funds. We have traction, we have something to show.
And how much you're looking for, Sudeep?
So we are currently looking for, so I've split it into year 1 and year 2 because we have never asked for funds before. So we are looking in the year 1, we are looking at around 3.5 crores, which is Indian rupees, and then 7 crores for the next year. So this translates to roughly around 480K and 970K in the US parlance, dollars terms. So typically we're looking at about 500K beginning.
Okay,
Awesome.
good. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Sudeep. And last but not least is Niral Network.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sudeep. Hi, Abhi. Whenever you're ready, you're on mute. Just get started. Get yourself situated.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is the desk visible? My screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, good evening, and so this is Abhijit. So I'm co-founder of Niral Networks. What we are doing is that we are building an open and curated network operating system to build private 5G networks within the enterprises, especially for the SMBs and the rural connectivity. So, it was co-founded by myself, Abhijit. I'm based out of Bangalore. This is my third startup. I have predominantly around 20 years of experience. Like was the architect in Sandvine as well as Huawei in their networking stack. Also worked with Cisco FPG. FPG got bought by Google. And then you have Inder. Inder is based out of New York, and he had co-founded 2 VC funded startups earlier. In fact, he was also the founding chairman of Open Daylight, which is one of the well-known open source projects out of US, and I mean it still exists. It's almost 12 years back. He was also the ex VP, global VP of IBM's networking. And we have Dan Tuchler. He's based out of Bay Area, and he also has a good experience of selling open source solution. Like he sold Viata to Brocade, and then he was also ex-VP in Pika8. Also in Viata, he was the VP of marketing there. So he comes with around 30 years of experience with networking products and a lot of sales in the open source market. So we are, we have an office in Bangalore and also in US. And overall, among us, we have 20 plus patents. Individually, I mean, in different companies, and 70 plus publications, all of them in the networking and computer security domain. Okay, so what we are trying to do is that, around 2019, we started the company. Before that, I had a consulting company with, we had developed products like networking products for operators in Middle East, Southeast Asia. So operators wanted to build their own software and hardware to networking infrastructure, I would say. They wanted to build, and they came to us for the software part, and they actually had a US partner to develop the hardware, and we integrated the solutions, and they are live in Middle East, Southeast Asia, and also in India. So we also have a cloud operator out in US too as our customer. But then 5G was just emerging, and we saw that open source, SDN, and 5G, which talks about open networking, right, is the right time to move from consulting to actually focus on developing a product, especially for the last mile connectivity. And the last mile connectivity, I would say, would be for digital transformation within the manufacturing, or if you have heard about Industry 4.0, right? That's the biggest use case for private 5G. is that like within any company, you have IT for information technology. For that, you have Wi-Fi or LAN is good enough. And it kind of, you don't, this kind of latency is good for human to human communication. But when you move to industrial, like there is a factory in by Mercedes, factory 56. If you go and read a little bit about that, then you'll figure out that in the factories, to automate all the stuff, like to AGVs, automated guided vehicles, and the factory floor, to automate that, you need like 10 millisecond kind of latency, and that kind of latency with reliability. Because if the connectivity goes down, or during the switchover from a Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi, if there is a huge higher latency, you may have a problem in your factory floor. So Wi-Fi per se is not, you can do information technology with that, but you cannot do like operation technology. And same operational technology is also required in like shipyard and mining and like even precision agriculture. So this is what 5G provides, and that's where we actually started the company to focus on building private 5G for last mile. And especially we wanted to focus on the SMB market, like not the very large enterprises at this point, but the smaller or medium scale enterprises, as well as rural connectivity. In fact, we are doing some pilots on the rural out here, which I'll explain. I'll skip. Okay, so one more problem which I didn't mention, and why we think it is very important, especially for the lower market, is that current solutions in 5G are from the bigger OEMs, and it's very proprietary. Whereas, so whenever you take a solution from that from the company or the OEM, you end up buying again from the same OEM. Whereas in the new, networking has actually moved in a different direction now. Like you can put anybody's software on any hardware, off-the-shelf hardware, and create a 5G network. And of course, based on throughput, you have to choose what kind of hardware you want, whether you want a white box with 10 gig throughput, or like 200 gig or 60 gig, it depends. But everything except the radio unit is all can run on white box. White box means commercially off-the-shelf hardware with open design. So this is an example of such a factory, just to show the use case I own. It's from Fujitsu, and you see like it's running on like 28 gigahertz and 4.7 gigahertz, and for AR VR application, or like AGV for like using the 4K cameras, all this information has to be like consumed, and you have to give the output like within range of 10 milliseconds. So that's why you have edge compute in here itself to give the latency, to ensure the latency is within the range. So this is a kind of a typical 5G network within a factory. And so as I mentioned earlier, 5G is inherently built with that. Like there are the standard itself is to support reliable, low latency, and IoT kind of communication, massive machine type communication. Which and based on what kind of use case, you would need different kind of kind of requirement. Like if you are using virtual reality, you would need very high bandwidth, as well as you will need very reliable, low latency also. Otherwise, you cannot run a AR VR application. So what has happened is that because of private 5G, and a lot of enterprises actually opting for private 5G, especially in Germany, the private 5G market is growing at a very high rate. I mean, almost the CAGR is almost 40%. It was around 1.2 billion in 2020, and it's going to touch 14.2 billion in by 2028. And one important thing I covered earlier was that predominantly all this has been hardware centric. Like when you talk about this, like if you talk about the OEMs, and they say more of hardware. But with 5G, if you see now, the radio unit, of course, is the costliest part. But apart from that, you can say 50%. Hardware part is 50, but the software plus services part, because you have to manage the network, is almost is actually 50%. So the software is actually going to define the private 5G, and that is increasing and is going to only increase with time. Coming back to what we have offered, so we have a disaggregated network operating system, which we call Niral OS. It is built with collaboration with a lot of open source projects, like Danos, which is contributed by AT&T, Magma, which is used for our edge compute from Facebook, and like ODL Open Daylight, which is also contributed by Orange. And then we work with a lot of hardware vendors, white box like Edgecore, UFI Space, who are based out of Taiwan mostly. And on top of that, we do the curation to make it carrier grade, interoperable, and also to provide the support, like what Red Hat does to Linux, right? So our solution, you can say, we take the software from Danos, Magma, or like ODL, and then on top of them, we integrate that, and we curate it to make it like carrier grade, which enterprises or SMBs can use it. So that's why we call it curated open source network operating system. So we have been in the news quite some time in there. So we are considered as one of the key software players in the disaggregated open router market. So it is from a US-based research firm called Light Counting. And also, if you see in the TIP telecom infrastructure project, which is actually a global open community. So Niral is mentioned as one of the software vendors to provide such solutions. On the trial front, so we have 3 paying customers. I won't say our solution is completely ready, but they are trying our solution. So we are working with banking, IDRBT for banking use case for rural India. Actually what they want to do is that in rural India, they don't want to provide a infrastructure for a bank, but they would have a kiosk like an ATM, which will have an AR VR handset, and it will connect to the next branch, which may be around 10 kilometers ahead away, and and it would provide a real feeling like as if you go to a bank because of the AR VR. So that's the use case we are working on with Reserve Bank of India, which is kind of maybe mandated to all banks once the trial is completed. We are working with IIT Mumbai. IIT Mumbai is actually working on the hardware, and we are building the software for the same private 5G network for smart city application, which has been again funded by government. And Sankhya is also our partner, and we are looking at a joint go-to-market for Europe. Sankhya is leading that. So for that, we had done some integration of our product to their solution. Apart from that, we are also talking to, because of my previously, we had directly worked with a lot of operators in India, Middle East, Southeast Asia. And we have been in the market for almost 7 years. Of course, Niral is 2 years, but before. So we do understand the operators and the cloud market. So we are working with a couple of internet service providers to help to provide them a new way to make them as an MVNO for private 5G. So we are discussing with them in India as well as in Europe, and they are pretty key because that way they can provide. I mean, while the real operator like AT&T can provide public 5G, but system integrators or ISPs, like the fiber to home provider, they can provide a private 5G within an enterprise, because they already have the backhaul fiber connectivity, but they cannot provide inside a factory, they cannot provide the connectivity. So that's what we are trying to bring the value at. So we are also talking to operators in India as well as in US, and also to some of the IoT providers, because they can be a good go-to market for us, because they already are in the factories. So, and a lot of places connectivity is a problem, so we can actually enrich that through our connectivity solution. Our product is divided into three parts. The transport is like the routing and the switching platform, and then the edge which would do the, the session management and the device management within the private network. So what I'm showing here is that um, our solution within a private network and one in the public network, like in the cloud, to control all this. Like, so you can say that we are like, once the solution is complete, we can actually provide this infrastructure as a service on a public cloud too. So and we can run it on the top of any operator's network, whereas the private network would be something which we would provide, or the SIs would provide, our partners would be provided. So that's what we are looking at. We are predominantly a software provider, not a hardware. The radio unit and the hardware would be recommended by us or by our partners. Again, same thing, like what is our like IP or what we are building on top of open source, because open source directly you cannot use. You need to build on your IP on top of open source to make it work. So we have quite a few IP on all this transport edge as well as the cloud part that we are doing. And yeah, that's how we see the market. You may know that unlicensed spectrum is part of private 5G. That means like you may be able to use the private 5G like Wi-Fi. NRU, which is actually already part of the 3GPP spec and release. So, you can use private 5G on an unlicensed spectrum or a localized spectrum. Like enterprises can take a local spectrum from the operator, from the government, and then build their own private 5G network. Or you can use shared spectrum like CBRS and like US and UK. There is a UK spectrum sharing in Germany. Or we can also collaborate with the telco and provide a mobile, use the operator spectrum and provide the solution. Again, we are not really bounded by that because we are not into the hardware space at all. Like the radio, based on what spectrum you use, we'll recommend you the hardware. And we can also take care of entire by procurement through our SIs. This is how we kind of differentiate ourselves from others.
1 minute, bud. We're way past 5.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I think so our go-to-market is predominantly at this point doing the trials, and then we would go to the ODM. We already have worked with the ODMs, but with the system integrators and the IoT, once the product is completely ready, these are the plans and yeah. So this is what we are looking at, a revenue projection. R&D would be completed by you can say January or by March of 2022. And we are looking to raise around 0.75 million. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Awesome. Hey, so real quick, just a question. So how much of your growth is predicated on the success of 5G and the rollout of 5G that you can't control versus what you can and growing yourself?
Okay, so our solution, you mean the growth of 5G? There are two parts in 5G. One is the public 5G and one is the private 5G. So we are not very dependent on the public 5G growth because it is private 5G growth is required only when there is a handover, like you're moving out from the enterprise to the the road in the highway. Then you need the public 5G growth is dependent. But having said that, for this kind of high throughput, you would need a solution like private 5G. We would coexist with Wi-Fi, as I was mentioning earlier, because IT would use Wi-Fi and they would use WLAN. Our solution also has that, like we have a gateway to work with Wi-Fi. So, but having said that, I think for industry 5.4.0 use cases in the factories, which is the biggest use case for 5G, I would say, device to device communication at reliable ultra low latency. I think 5G is key. it cannot, I mean, especially for enterprises. So I feel it is, so that way, I mean, without that, you cannot actually transform your enterprises to be digitized completely, your operation technology of the enterprise.
Got it. Okay. Harsh, you have any questions?
No question as such, just a feedback, Abhijit. You need to be very concise and very precise in your presentation, right? There's way too much data, way too much text, way too much elaboration, right? Try to be as concise and crisp and not deep dive too much into technology, but cover other elements of the business as well. Because what happens is after a while, the investor would kind of tend to zone out, if it kind of drags on too long. So you have to try to wrap it up within 5 minutes to 7 minutes at best. And that's the entire idea why we kind of restricted it to 5 minutes. So just as a feedback, I would suggest to kind of work on your presentation in the longer run. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for that.
And sure, no worries. And one more thing which I kind of feel is you need to kind of mitigate the risks surrounding a business. There seems to be a lot of risks as well, as Derek was alluding to. Depends on 5G, right? Even the public acceptance of 5G could be a bit of a challenge. So you need to figure out how you can de-risk that, and how you can mitigate those potential challenges which might arise, because increasingly people are becoming skeptical of 5G as well, right? That's why.
Right.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think what I'm going to do now is Tushar had to leave early, so we ended up actually taking out all of his votes. And so that was the only way it was fair. So what I want to do really quickly. All right, everyone. There's not like a great, everyone close their eyes. Close your eyes, Harsh. Give me a second. I don't really know how to do this too well. Zoom is not too good for this. So the third place winner of the Hacks from Silicon Valley and GSD Venture Studios pitch competition is ConnectPlex. So round of applause. I don't hear you. Oh, I guess because everyone's muted. And the second place winner, round of applause, eGyanam Tech.
Thank you.
And everyone, hold on. Everyone can now unmute. So everyone unmute and bang on your tables. Drum roll. And the winner is of the 2021 Hacks from Silicon Valley and GSD Venture Studios pitch competition is MayaMD AI. So let's see if Dr. Raju, are you still here?
Yes, I'm there.
Congratulations, my friend. We'll send you an email on our accelerator and how you could join. But it was a great pitch. We think it's a timely problem. That was one of the notes. Great technology, great traction. So congratulations. And I think all the participants had great products. I think it ultimately came down to being able to rock the pitch and demonstrate traction. And you were clearly the winner. But I think all the companies did a great job. And I think today was a phenomenal day, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. So, like I said, reach out to us. We will be, let us know how we can help. And thank you so much for coming today. All right, everyone.
Thank
Do you have
you.
anything, Gary, you want to
Bye.
say goodbye?
No, you did a great job. Get out there and get them. It's not easy, but the world is your oyster. And if you want to go global, let us know. We're happy to help. Go get them. Stay safe and stay happy.
All the best,
All right.
guys. And even if you didn't get the chance to pitch or win today, it was just today, right? You'll get more opportunities. What's important is to keep on persevering, be persistent, and keep on working towards next step, right? As Derek and Gary have already pointed out, you can reach out to any of us, and we would be happy to help you out in you and take your startup to the next level.
All right, everyone. Goodbye. Adios, amigos.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.